cultivation world, I begin by getting struck by lightning. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 Small Spirit Gathering Array. The next day, the news that the awakens society was bloodbath spread throughout the market. Although there were many different opinions, everyone knew that the awakens society must have offended some master. Overnight, Yu Hang, the leader of the 7th level of key training, and the backbone of the gang were almost slaughtered. Those who can accomplish this must at least be key training perfect, or even a senior in foundation building. Since the awakens society took over the scattered stalls in the market, it not only increased the stall fees, but also bullied the market and forcibly purchased talismans, offending too many people. The most bizarre thing is the attitude of the Cultivation sect. Everyone knows that without the support of several outer disciples of the Cultivation sect, how dare the awakens society be so rampant? But after this incident, the Cultivation sect acted as if nothing had happened. And according to news from insiders, several outer disciples have been driven back to the sect this morning. This is a bit intriguing. No one would have thought that it was a small cultivator of the 4th level of key training who bloodbathed the awakens society. Su Fan was completely unaware of the rumors in the market. He didn't care about these trivial matters. At this time, he was sitting cross-legged on the futon with a storage bag in his hand. This is the storage bag of Yu Hang of Hu, which is as big as 5 square meters. Su Fan took out the things inside and piled them up into a small mountain. There are all kinds of cultivation resources such as magic tools, talismans, pills and various materials. From these messy things, it can be seen that this guy must have been abandoned cultivator in the past. First of all, there are 8 spirit stones of medium quality and more than 1,000 of low quality. Then there are pills, 5 bottles of Peking Yuan pills taken by cultivators in the middle stage of key training, and dozens of bottles of various auxiliary pills. There are 3 magic tools in total, including the low-quality protective magic tool Black Turtle Shield, the medium-quality attack magic tool King Hong Sword, and the high-quality magic tool Shadowless Needle. Although the Black Turtle Shield is a low-quality magic tool, it can block the attacks of 4 high-quality talismans in succession, and the effect is still good. At present, a lot of spirituality has been lost, and it needs to be nurtured for a period of time, but it does not need to be repaired. Su Fan planned to keep this magic weapon. Although there were many attack magic weapons on the market, there were not many protective magic weapons. Moreover, they were very expensive. The problem was that even with spirit stones, one could not buy a good one. The attack power of the middle-grade magic weapon King Hong Sword was average, but it could be kept as a backup. Su Fan picked up the Shadowless Needle and looked at it carefully. It was more than 2 inches long, black in color, and flashing with a blue light. This was a very rare treasure, and it could be called a fine product even among the top-grade magic weapons. In the future, the Shadowless Needle would be Su Fan's main magic weapon. This thing was very suitable for him, and it could definitely win by surprise at a critical moment. In addition to the 3 magic weapons, there were 2 sets of talisman arrays. I don't know where Yu Hang got them from. And most of the talisman arrays came from the Central Plains. This thing was average in effect, and the price was not cheap, so it was hard to see in the western wilderness. Su Fan was also inexperienced. If he had used the thunder eyes to take a glance before entering the yard, he could easily detect something wrong. The most important part of the talisman array is the center of the array, which is a jade talisman engraved with a simple spirit gathering array. Together with 18 sub-talismans, it forms a talisman array. How should I put it? It's a bit tasteless, but it's better than nothing. I thought that apart from these, there was nothing else that would catch my eye. Who knew that among more than a dozen books, he found a secret technique called Mianbu. When practiced to perfection, it can make the body move as fast as lightning, and can create a residual image to confuse the opponent. Su Fan immediately became excited. This secret technique is not bad. It can completely integrate the supernatural power Thunder Ghost Step. Swallowing this secret technique can not only enhance the power of supernatural powers, but also increase the proficiency of Thunder Ghost Step. There is nothing worth paying attention to the rest of the things. They are awesome books, talismans, spiritual herbs and refining materials, and there are quite a lot of them. It's a pity that he can't use them, so he can only exchange them for spirit stones. As for the things of other casual cultivators, there is no need to mention them. In addition to a few hundred spirit stones, there are a dozen storage bags and more than 20 low-grade magic tools, which are worth some spirit stones. Sufan's vision has changed a lot, and he no longer cares about ordinary things. What Sufan wants most is actually the second-level Jade Talisman Shengli Zuan Shuzhao, but it was used by Yuan. After seeing the power of the second-level Jade Talisman, he now dreams of getting one for himself. Unfortunately, Jade Talismans for the Foundation building period and talismans for the Golden Elixir period are often hard to come by. Even if there are, they are all made by Foundation building and Golden Elixir cultivators for the younger generations of the family, so they are very precious. Sufan had just put away his things when he heard a sound coming from the yard. Without asking, he knew that Yishian was here again. Old Yi pushed the door and walked into the house, and smiled when he saw him. I asked for you today and got you some rewards. Do you want spiritual stones, or elixirs, or magic tools? Sufan was interested when he heard it. He helped Old Yi brew a pot of spiritual tea and poured it for him diligently. Anything is fine, of course, I asked in person. How dare they not give it? But it can't be too much? Just about enough. Do you have a second-level Jade Talisman? Puff. Yishian, who was sipping tea, spat it out. He coughed a few times and then wiped his mouth. What are you talking about? You are really good. Why don't you want a talisman? Talismans are fine, I'm not picky. Yishian was so angry that he laughed. He pointed at Sufan and didn't say anything for a long time. I'll give you spiritual stones. Buy whatever you want. Sufan immediately quit. He didn't lack spiritual stones now. And some things of the immortal sect could not be bought at the market no matter how much money you spent. If you don't take this opportunity to get some good things from the Kingston sect, you will miss it. I was just kidding just now. Can you help me get a top-grade protective magic weapon? Old Yu took a sip of spiritual tea, shook his head and said, you are really brave to ask for it. Change it. The Jade Talisman he wanted most could not be obtained, and he had no shortage of attack magic weapons. What should he ask for? Sufan thought for a long time and finally thought of what he wanted. If I want footwork and spiritual eye-related spells or secret arts, this should be fine. Yishian put down the teacup and stared at Sufan for a while. Your footwork secret arts are catching up with other people's escape arts. Be careful not to bite off more than you can chew. After he said that, he took out a jade slip from his storage bag and threw it to Sufan. Even if Kingston sect has a better spiritual eye-related secret art, it will not be given to you. I happen to have one here, which I seized from the demon cultivator. You can use it. Sufan took the jade slip and laughed. Then I don't want anything else, just ask for spirit stones. Yishian thought for a while and said, your aptitude is not very good, why not ask for a small spirit gathering array? Sufan was a little confused. What is this thing? Sitting in the small spirit gathering array to practice will speed up the gathering of spiritual energy, and the practice effect will be at least twice as good as usual. After hearing what Old Yi said, Sufan's eyes suddenly lit up. This is good, I want a small spirit gathering array. If I have this thing, the practice speed will be faster, and in a few months I will be able to practice to the perfection of the 4th level of key training. Starting today, there will be 2 updates a day, each with 2,000 words, and the update time will be before 1 o'clock in around noon. Thank you for the reward from Mr. Guyelbe. Thank you for your support all the time. Thank you for your recommendation votes from I Am Your Sister, Wow, Holiday Coffee, Ultraman 999, Zengayu Tongying, and all the big guys. Lao Bu is deeply grateful. Thank you for your love and support. Chapter 27 He is not a thing. That afternoon, Yishian brought the small spirit gathering array. The small spirit gathering array is actually a round jade plate with a diameter of about 1 meter. There are 9 slots on the edge of the plate. When practicing, put 9 spirit stones in the slots, and the small spirit gathering array will start. Sufan placed the small spirit gathering array in the practice room, put the food on it, and then took out 9 spirit stones and put them into the slots respectively. He sat cross-legged on the futon and began to practice Hunungong. Time passed unknowingly, and Sufan, who had completed the 9th level of Gongsing, slowly opened his eyes. It was so cool. The first time I used the small spirit gathering array, the feeling was simply indescribable. The rich spiritual energy rushed towards him, making Sufan feel like he was on drugs, as if every cell in his body was cheering. and the speed of practice was much faster, estimated to be at least twice as fast. This is the real cultivation of immortals. No wonder this world of cultivation emphasizes wealth, law, companions, and land. The immortal sect sits on the land of spiritual veins, and the speed of practice of the disciples in the sect can be imagined. Many casual cultivators can only practice at the edge of the spirit vein, relying on the little spiritual energy overflowing from the immortal sect's spirit vein. The difference is simply a world of difference. Su Fan was so excited that he couldn't help himself. With a small spirit gathering array, the late stage of key training is just around the corner, and even the foundation building stage is not impossible. Just when he wanted to stand up, he was suddenly stunned. He picked up a spirit stone from the slot on the edge of the small spirit gathering array, and he was stupid at that time. The spirit stone in his hand has completely lost its spirituality, just like an ordinary stone. Su Fan slapped his forehead in annoyance, and was fooled by old Yi again. It is fast to practice with a small spirit gathering array, but it takes 9 spirit stones to practice once. Who can bear it? Practicing twice a day requires 18 spirit stones. If it comes to a year, it will cost more than 6,000 spirit stones. The spirit stones in his hand are not enough for the small spirit gathering array to cause trouble for half a year. In fact, it is not Ye Xian's fault. As an elite disciple of the sword sect, when has he ever lacked spirit stones? Maybe in his eyes, thousands of spirit stones are just small money, not a big deal at all. Su Fan sighed. It was really cool. But it was a pity that he couldn't afford it. Forget it, I'd better use this thing less in the future. As a result, at night, Su Fan practiced Hununju again. After a while, he stopped. After experiencing the feeling of abundant spiritual energy in the small spirit gathering array, he felt uncomfortable as if grass had grown in his heart when he practiced like before. This is simply incomparable. Su Fan thought about it, took out the small spirit gathering array again, and stuffed it with spirit stones. The surrounding spiritual energy once again swarmed towards him with joy. After 9 turns of merit, Su Fan opened his eyes and sighed deeply. Old Yi, you cheated me again. He is not a toy. Although I feel sorry for the spirit stones, I have to grit my teeth and persist because the speed of practice has increased so much. It's just spirit stones. I will earn more after I spend them. The next day, Su Fan came to the market with another identity. He found a shop and sold a batch of cultivation materials seized from the Kyankan Society. Because there were too many, it would take a long time to process them all. At noon, Su Fan came to the scattered stalls market. As soon as he set up the stall, someone came to collect fees, only 30 magic coins, and his attitude was not bad. He chatted with the stall owner next to him and found out that after the fall of the Kyankan Society, the market had been taken over by Tehal. Compared with the domineering Kyankan Society, the people of Tehal were more reasonable. After all, the arrogant Kyankan Society had just been slaughtered by a mysterious master. The new Tehal had some concerns. Although the price of talismans in the market has dropped a lot, it is still higher than before. Su Fan didn't pretend anymore, and directly filled the stall with various talismans, nearly 100 of them. The hundreds of medium-quality talismans he had originally collected, as well as the inventory he had drawn, plus the one seized from the Kyankan Society this time. If all were added together, there would still be nearly 1,000 talismans. Su Fan thought for a moment, then took out 2 low-grade spiritual tools from his storage bag and put them on the stall. Unexpectedly, someone asked the price as soon as he put them on the stall. Since they were seized, he gave a fair price and the other party bought them without much bargaining. Su Fan immediately became excited and took out a few more low-grade magic tools and put them on the stall. Not only that, he also took out a bunch of unused elixirs, various spiritual herbs, refining materials, and even put out several magic swords. After he put the stall in order, he looked at the various goods on the stall, which were simply dazzling. Several stall owners nearby were jealous. One person finally couldn't hold it in anymore and came over to ask, "Old Fan, where did you get so many things? They are all consigned by others." Several stall owners nearby all curled their lips, and they obviously didn't believe it. "You are a lousy talisman seller, who would consign things to you?" Everyone secretly speculated in their hearts whether Master Fan had hooked up with the bandit cultivators and helped them sell the stolen goods. The things on the stalls were so mixed that it looked like they were not going to come straight. But no one said anything, and they became much more polite than before. Su Fan didn't care about these things. Let them think whatever they want. Now he only had spirit stones in his eyes. There was no other way. The small spirit gathering array burned too many spirit stones. Adding the elixir, he would have to make a lot in a year. The leisurely days before were gone forever. But if he gave up the small spirit gathering array, he really couldn't do it. The world of cultivation was very dangerous. Without strength, he didn't even have the qualifications to lie down. It's better to stay alive. From today on, work hard to earn spirit stones and strive to break through the late stage of key training as soon as possible. There were too many things on Su Fan's stall. There were dozens of talismans alone, and the prices were very conscientious. As long as you come to his stall, you don't need to go anywhere else. He was busy all the time. And it was not until the evening that he could calm down. But he also gained a lot, earning almost 1,000 spirit stones. Because things like magic tools and elixirs are all zero cost, and selling spirit stones is all profit. Su Fan regretted it. Why did he sell those things to the store? He could sell a lot more at the stall. Anyway, he had no shortage of supplies. The cultivation resources he seized from the Kyankan society alone were enough for him to sell for a while. If it were in the past, he would have been targeted by bandits after earning so many spiritual stones. But since the Kingsuan sect entered Xiaoyangfang, this place has changed a lot. Not only has the market prospered, but the public security is much better than before. At least the area around the market is safer. The spiritual stone flow of the scattered market alone every day is a considerable amount. Even the original bandits in the market have washed their hands and become organized gangs of evil forces. To be honest, collecting protection fees is much faster than robbing. In the next few days, Su Fan would go to the scattered market at noon and come back in the evening. With a sale of more than 20 magic tools and dozens of bottles of elixirs, the turnover began to drop sharply. In fact, this is the normal level of the stall. The rest, such as talismans, spiritual herbs and spiritual materials, are not so fast. Thanks to Sunxiankin for the monthly ticket, thanks to Sunxiankin, Daoi's Henshin, I Am Your Sister, Zhengayu Tongying, and all the big guys for their recommendation votes. Lao Bu is deeply grateful. Thank you all for your love and support. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 How to Get Such a Master. In the evening, Su Fan returned home from the market carrying a worn-out package. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Yi Xian. He came out of the kitchen and asked him a question when he saw him. Do you still have that pickled monster meat? Su Fan shook his head and smiled bitterly. It was gone yesterday. Yi Xian was anxious when he heard it, and his face was full of displeasure. Why don't you go buy some? I like to eat this. Go quickly, I'm so stupid. You act like a big shot, and I don't even know whose family this is. I made them all by myself. There's nothing to sell in the market. You can just eat some pickles today. Yi Xian was immediately interested when he heard it. Those pickled monster meats were made by you. You're quite good at it. Why don't you make some more tomorrow, old Yi? Fresh monster meat in the market is several times more expensive than before. It's not worth it. See if you can buy some cheaper ones from Kingsuan sect. If it were before, Su Fan really didn't take it seriously, but now it's not the case. He was so stingy now that he wanted to break even one spiritual stone into two halves to spend. Yi Xian shook his head and said, this is not the mountain gate of Kingsuan sect, they also bought it from the market. After he said that, he thought for a while and clapped his hands. Let's go to Shaoyuan Mountain to relax. By the way, kill a few more monsters and make them into marinated meat when we come back. Su Fan was stunned after hearing this. You call killing monsters a relaxation? Are monsters pet dogs? You can just catch them and play with them whenever you have nothing to do. In his limited memory, he had gone into the mountains to hunt monsters several times, and the process was quite thrilling. And almost every time, someone was injured. Yi Xian looked at Su Fan with contempt. I was thrown into the mountains by my master when I was at the second level of key training. I killed my way out of the mountains with just a sword. Su Fan did not have any respect for old Yi's glorious deeds. He just felt that it was not easy for him to live this long. How could he have such a master? Too cruel. How can you treat your own disciple like this? Yi Xian laughed and said, You haven't seen what a monster looks like until now." Su Fan was immediately angry. Who was he looking down on? "I used to go into the mountains to hunt monsters, but I stopped growing after I became a talisman master." Ye Xian patted his shoulder and laughed. "Then you are afraid of nothing. It's settled. We will go into the mountains tomorrow morning. We are tired of staying in the market every day." After saying that, Old Ji turned around and left. Su Fan called out a few times, but he ignored him. "What the hell? Just go." With his current strength, as long as he doesn't go deep into the mountains, there shouldn't be any danger. And there's Old Yi. Even if he encounters a second-level monster, he has to fight it. No, this guy always pits himself. I can't trust him anymore. No matter what time, I have to rely on myself. Su Fan took out a jade slip that Old Yi gave him from the storage bag and put it on his forehead. This secret technique is not simple. It comes from the lineage of the Ghost King sect and is called Zuanming Ghostai. It belongs to the charm and intimidation type of spiritual secret technique. Through charm, the mind of the cultivator can be affected, making him completely lose himself and lose his reason. It can also be used through intimidation. If you encounter a guilty and timid opponent, he will even be scared out of his wits. It is said that if you practice it to the extreme, you can scare people to death on the spot. Su Fan put down the jade slip. He couldn't be more satisfied with this secret technique. It is very good for using it to trick people. After a careful study, he quickly got the hang of it. Su Fan opened the panel and let Thunder Eyes merge with Zuanming Ghost Eyes. With the fusion of the secret technique, he had a lot of information in his mind, all of which were the perceptions and experiences of the Zuanming Ghost Eyes secret technique. I don't know how long it took for the supernatural power and the secret technique to be considered integrated. Open the panel again. Thunder Eyes, great. 321/400. The Thunder Eyes supernatural power not only has the ability to charm and intimidate, but also has a full increase of more than 100 points in proficiency. He really didn't put much thought into this magical power, but after swallowing 2 spells, he was almost perfect with it. Ancient magical powers are awesome. If with the help of the game panel, he can integrate a few more spiritual type spells in the future, then this magical power will be incredible. Su Fan's eyes condensed, and there was a slight flash of lightning in his eyes. I don't know if it was his illusion, but now the Thunder Eyes has a little more blur. Of course, there is a disadvantage to spiritual secrets. That is, the strength of your spiritual consciousness must be higher than that of the caster, otherwise it will be backfired by the spiritual consciousness, and the result will be very miserable. Su Fan took out another book and found the secret called Miyanbu. Compared with the inheritance of the Ghost King sect Zuanming Ghostai, this secret technique is a little worse, and it may be the inheritance of the law lineage left by a small sect. Miyanbu can make the body move as fast as lightning. Su Fan didn't care much about this. No matter how fast it was not as fast as Thunder Ghost Step. What he cared more about was another function of the secret technique, which was to create an afterimage to confuse the opponent. This was quite awesome. While they were fighting, 2 people suddenly appeared on the opposite side, and they were so fast. How could he defend against this? But a kind of negative material called soul falling sand must be used to achieve this surprising effect. This material is not available in the market, and it is said that it is easy to find within the sphere of influence of the demon sect. Fortunately, there are still a few bottles of soul falling sand left in Yu Hang's storage bag, enough for him to use dozens of times. Unfortunately, although Yu Hang had mastered this secret technique, he was severely damaged by Su Fan before he had a chance to use it. It must have been very frustrating when he died. Su Fan came to the yard excitedly and practiced seriously. After his efforts, he soon got the hang of this secret technique. Su Fan followed the same method and fused the missing smoke step with a magical power Thunder Ghost Step. As some insights poured into his mind, the missing smoke step was completely integrated with a magical power. He was a little excited because the Thunder Ghost Step was almost perfect. He wondered if this fusion could break through. Su Fan opened the panel and smiled. He finally achieved perfection. Thunder Ghost Step, perfect. 3/800. He invested a lot of time and energy in the Thunder Ghost Step, and it was not in vain. Su Fan closed his eyes, and a flash of lightning flashed under his feet. His figure instantly disappeared from the spot. When he appeared again, he was already 7 or 8 meters away, and his speed was obviously increased. Su Fan patted his storage bag, took out a gray porcelain bottle, and poured some into his hand. He activated the Thunder Ghost step and his figure disappeared again. When he appeared again, two blurry figures appeared on the opponent 7 or 8 meters away. But the shadow only stayed for a few breaths and then dissipated naturally. The time was a little short, but it was enough. After all, when fighting, the opponent would not wait for a few breaths before making a move. Su Fan was quite satisfied with this fusion. The magical power of Thunder Ghost Step is definitely his most important trump card, at least for now. Chapter 29, Sword Cultivator Can't Be Provoked. The next day, Su Fan got up very early. He took everything with him, and he had enough supplies in case of emergency. Now he has 6 storage bags, 2 5 square meter bags, 2 2 square meter bags, and 2 1 square meter bags, which are enough for this trip into the mountains. Old Yi said he would come in the morning, but he didn't show up until almost noon. Yi Xian glanced at Su Fan, nodded and said, "Let's go." Su Fan ignored him and turned to push the door and leave. "Where are you going? Didn't you say you were going into the mountains?" Yi Xian slapped his forehead, then slapped his storage bag and took out an inch-sized shuttle. He threw the shuttle into the sky, and the shuttle grew in the wind and instantly turned into a 4 or 5 meter long diamond-shaped shuttle. Yi Xian jumped up and looked back at Su Fan with contempt. "You don't want me to go into Shaoyuan Mountain with you, right? What are you looking at? Hurry up and come up." Su Fan's face turned red because of what old Yi said. He moved and floated onto the shuttle. Before he could stand still, the shuttle had already whooshed out. Oh my god, Su Fan was not prepared at all and sat on the shuttle. This guy must have done it on purpose. "Old Yi, I hate you." Seeing Su Fan's embarrassed look, Yi Xian was very happy and laughed. In the past, when Su Fan and a group of casual cultivators went into the mountains, they had to get up before dawn and walk until noon before entering the mountains. And before dark, they had to find a suitable camping site. After entering the mountains, they had to be careful and cautious. Even the slightest mistake could cause casualties. It's not like now. In half an hour, the two of them had arrived deep in the mountains on the shuttle. For such a long distance, casual cultivators would have to trek in the mountains for at least half a month. "Brother, that's enough. Don't fly in anymore." Yi Xian stood in front of the shuttle with his hands behind his back, and a spiritual light shield was propped up in front of him to block the strong wind. After listening to Su Fan's words, he shook his head. "Why, are you scared?" Su Fan almost died of anger. Every cultivator knows that you can't fly in the sky after entering the mountains. If you encounter a second-level flying monster, you will die miserably. "Of course I'm scared. You've flown so far. What if you encounter a flying monster?" Yi Xian smiled proudly. "Kill it." Su Fan once again gave a perfect score to old Yi's pretentious posture. This guy is really good at pretending. And it comes with its own BGM, which can make people feel involved in it at once. It is definitely the ceiling of the pretentious world. At this time, a hissing sound came from a distance. A giant bird with a wingspan of more than 10 meters suddenly emerged from the clouds and rushed straight towards the shuttle. The long sword behind Yi Xian flew into the sky with a whoosh. He formed a sword with 2 fingers and pointed forward. A shocking sword intent burst out, and the majestic sword force instantly tore through the space. It turned into a sword beam and rushed into the sky. In an instant, the giant bird in the distance was cut in half by a sword. The flying sword flew back to the scabbard with a piercing whistle. Anyone could feel a sense of joy from it. Su Fan was stunned. "This sword has become a spirit." Yi Xian said, "Let's go down. It hasn't been unsheathed for several months. How can it not bleed a little? Damn. Sword cultivators are all crazy, even their swords are not normal." The shuttle landed in a valley. Su Fan looked around. Before he could say anything, old Yi pointed to the front. "There is an iron-skinned barbarian bull there. Go and kill it." Su Fan was not happy and said angrily, "Why should I go? You let your flying sword cut it with a whoosh." Yi Xian shook his head and said with a straight face, "What a joke, a first-level middle-grade monster. It doesn't deserve it." Su Fan almost choked to death by old Yi's words. "There is no way, his flying sword is noble. You are all masters, so let me, a small casual cultivator, go." Su Fan could only draw out his magic sword and walk in the direction pointed by Lao Yi. He had read the monster book, which introduced the habits and weaknesses of the iron-skinned barbarian bull in a very comprehensive way. The 2 horns can be used to refine weapons, the cowhide can be used to refine magic tools or talismans, and other parts are also useful. Hunting one back can at least exchange for dozens of spirit stones. Moreover, its meat is firm, juicy and tender, and tastes good. Several hotels in Fangxi are purchasing it for a long time. When Su Fan was thinking about it, he heard a boom and there was a commotion in the dense forest opposite. A huge beast as tall as 2 or 3 meters was rampaging in the woods. It smashed the thick ancient trees one by one, but its speed did not slow down at all, and it roared out of the dense forest. The iron-skinned barbarian bull was ferocious and violent, and its hide was as hard as iron. When facing such a monster, casual cultivators would need at least several people to deal with it, and they had to make arrangements in advance. But for Su Fan, killing a first-level middle-grade demon beast was not a big deal. He was not panicked at all, holding the sword in both hands, quietly waiting for the arrival of the Iron Bull. The Iron Bull was as fast as lightning, and it covered a distance of dozens of meters in an instant, and rushed towards Su Fan violently. Just when it was about to hit Su Fan, his figure suddenly disappeared from the spot and appeared on the side of the Iron Bull. With his left foot as the axis, he turned his body violently, swung the big sword with both hands, and slashed at the left front leg of the Iron Bull fiercely. Bang! The magic sword weighing 200 or 300 kilograms was swung by Su Fan in a full circle, and the huge force cut off the bull's leg in one go. The Iron Bull fell to the ground, but the huge inertia made it roll on the ground for several rounds. It struggled to turn over, but before it could get up, a flying needle had whooshed into its eye socket. Moo! The Iron Bull struggled violently for a while, and finally stopped moving. Su Fan walked up to it and frowned at the sight of such a huge beast. This big guy must weigh at least a dozen tons. The few storage bags in his hand were no match for it. In desperation, Su Fan took out his magic dagger and wanted to cut it. Take the useful materials from the iron-skinned barbarian bull and take some meat away. At this time, Yi Xian came over. He touched the ring on his hand, and the huge iron-skinned barbarian bull disappeared from the ground in an instant. Su Fan was stunned. Damn, it was a storage ring. He couldn't help but lament that he was a disciple of the sword sect. And he had already played with a storage ring in the key refining stage. Compared with the storage bag, the storage ring was dozens of square meters in size. Storage rings are not something that ordinary people can have. Even those in the foundation establishment stage may not be able to get one. What are you still looking at? Let's go. We'll camp in front tonight. After Yi Xian finished speaking, he left leisurely with his hands behind his back, humming a little tune. Su Fan shook his head. He couldn't afford to offend a sword cultivator. Next, Su Fan killed 2 more monsters, both of which were first-level low-grade. First-level monsters don't have any innate magical powers, they rely entirely on their strong bodies and amazing speed. This poses no threat to Su Fan, and you can kill one in 2 or 3 strikes. Thanks to Gui Yubei for the reward and monthly ticket, and thanks to Shi Sande and Bai Zhenyu for the recommendation ticket. Lao Bu is deeply grateful, and thank you all for your love and support. Chapter 30. You really think of me as a cook. In the evening, the two camped in a valley. Yi Xian took out a big pill and was about to put it in his mouth when he saw Su Fan cutting meat there. He quickly put the big pill away. Who would eat this broken thing when there is meat to eat? Su Fan used a few stones brought from home to pile up 2 simple stoves. He rubbed a small fireball with his hands, lit the firewood piled inside, and then pressed it down to suffocate. He specially chopped a piece of ribs weighing more than 10 pounds, cut it into 1-inch cubes, and marinated it with seasoning for half an hour. Then he strung the marinated cubes into strings with the iron skewers that had been prepared long ago. These were the iron skewers he specially ordered in the market. Each one was nearly 2 feet long, and there was a curved hook on the back of the iron skewers. Su Fan took out something like an iron bucket from the storage bag and put it on the firewood. Then he hung the iron skewers around the edge of the iron bucket, hung them on the stove and roasted them slowly over a low fire, and finally put the lid on the iron bucket. On another stove, there was an iron rack with a large stone pot on it, and spiritual rice was placed inside. On the spiritual rice were pieces of monster meat and fresh vegetables, and then seasonings were added, and the lid was put on to steam. After a long time of hard work, he was finally done. Su Fan turned his head and saw Yi Xian sitting on the stone next to him and looking at him. It will be ready in a while. After hearing Su Fan's words, old Yi frowned and asked, "Where did you learn these things? Do I need to learn this?" "Just think about it when I want to eat," Yi Xian sighed and said, "If you put all these thoughts into practicing sword, You might have realized the meaning of sword. Su Fan curled his lips. There's a game panel, and I don't need to realize it. After a while, the aroma of spiritual rice and hanging stove meat skewers spread around. Yi Cheyenne swallowed his saliva and stared at the iron bucket of hanging stove skewers. Don't look at what he says, he is actually a big foodie. Next, Su Fan sat on a stone, admiring the beautiful scenery in the mountains. Yi Cheyenne squatted beside the stove, staring at the iron bucket. After more than half an hour, Su Fan opened the lid of the iron bucket. He took out the seasoning and sprinkled it on the hanging stove meat skewers, then roasted them for a while, and then took out all the hanging stove skewers. He took out a few plates, piled the sizzling hanging stove skewers on a few plates, and placed them on a flat stone. In fact, as soon as the lid was opened, Yi Cheyenne came over. What is this? Su Fan laughed and said, meat skewers, you haven't eaten them before. Yi Cheyenne rubbed his hands, swallowed his saliva and shook his head. I really haven't eaten them before, they look delicious. Seeing the big devil suddenly turned into a husky, Su Fan was a little unprepared. A few meat skewers are not a big deal. Eat it while it's hot. Yi Cheyenne nodded excitedly and took out a bottle of spirit wine from the storage bag. Senior Chu Guan gave me a few bottles of spirit wine. I was thinking of bringing them back to my master. Let's drink one bottle together. That's good enough. Su Fan didn't say anything, but sighed in his heart. You are really filial. If I had a master like that, I would kill him with a sword. Su Fan brought the stone pot over again, opened the lid, and the aroma of spirit rice instantly hit his nose. The meat slices on the spirit rice were steamed crystal clear, and the gravy had been fully integrated with the spirit rice, which could stimulate people's appetite. Yi Cheyenne picked up a skewer of meat and took a bite without feeling hot. Hiss, he grinned because of the heat, and ate with a face full of enjoyment, just like a silly husky. You are not a decent boy. Why didn't you make such delicious food for me before? Su Fan ignored him. Old Yi, who had entered the state of a silly husky, was too lazy to reason with him. Where did your pretentiousness go? Old Yi is a big foodie, and Su Fan is also a glutton. A big stone pot of steamed spiritual rice, plus 10 kilograms of hanging oven grilled skewers, the two of them ate it all up. In the next 2 days, the two wandered around in the mountains. Following a sword madman into the mountains, Su Fan was no longer in the state of walking on thin ice as before. It felt like two hikers, traveling in the mountains. Yi Cheyenne has become addicted to the hanging oven grilled skewers made by Su Fan. He has to eat one every day, and he never gets tired of it. At noon that day, Su Fan was busy there, and Yi Cheyenne sat next to him like a boss. Add some more spicy, it won't taste good without spicy. Su Fan was so angry that he threw the skewers and turned to glare at old Yi. Can't you come over to help? Old Yi shook his head and said with a serious face, what a joke, you asked me to do this, I am a sword cultivator. Su Fan almost threw the iron skewer on his face. Sword cultivators are so naughty. Suddenly, Yi Cheyenne stood up suddenly. Whoosh! The flying sword behind him soared into the sky. He stepped on the flying sword and floated in the air, staring at the distance. Su Fan was also numb. What happened? He quickly put down the iron stick in his hand, drew out the magic sword and was fully alert. At this time, he saw a silver light flying over from a distance. Yi Cheyenne, who was floating in the air, relaxed and showed a smile on his face. The silver light was as fast as lightning and flew over in a moment. Yi Cheyenne reached out to catch the flying sword, and a person's voice came out from it. He laughed after hearing it, then replied a few words and waved his hand. The flying sword turned into a silver light, drew a beautiful arc in an instant, and rushed away. Su Fan was a little confused. Are the communication tools of sword cultivators so awesome? Yi Cheyenne landed and put away the flying sword. Do more today, and 2 fellow brothers will come over later. Su Fan sneered, really treating me as a cook. You sword cultivators are all masters. But he didn't say anything. Just do it. Why don't you eat too much? Su Fan was busy with his hands and feet, while Yi Cheyenne stood on a huge rock and looked into the distance from time to time. It was not until he took out the hanging oven skewers that 2 figures appeared in the distance. Su Fan turned his head and took a look, curling his lips. You guys are really good at rushing and coming on time. He put the grilled skewers on a plate, brought the stone pot over, and continued to thread the skewers. There was no way, one pot couldn't hold them all. It was estimated that these 2 people were big foodies like old Yi. Can't I prepare more? At this time, Two monks stepped on flying swords and came above them. Yishan hurriedly went up to greet them and bowed to the two people who fell down. "Hello, Senior Brother Cheyenne." The two of them were very respectful to Yishan and bowed to old Yi. Su Fan glanced back and saw that the two were dressed similarly to Yishan, and there was a girl among them. One of them was over 30 years old, with a sturdy and strong figure and a rough and bold face. The girl was pretty, with skin whiter than snow, slender and graceful, and her black hair was combed into a high-pitched bun. But there was a hint of sharpness in her temperament, and her sharp temperament was overwhelming. Su Fan shook his head. She was a good girl, why would she be a sword cultivator? Chapter 31 Come and bite me if you dare. The tall and strong sword cultivator twitched his nose. Brother Cheyenne, why don't you return to the sect? You are living a carefree life. The girl looked at old Yi with a crazy look on her face, and her eyes were almost full of stars. Brother Cheyenne, I miss you. Cheyenne laughed and turned around to point at Su Fan. Two brothers, this is a little brother I just met. He is a good person. Su Fan stood up and bowed to the two of them with a smile. But he didn't understand why the two people opposite him looked at him so strangely. How could he know that Cheyenne was a loner everywhere? Not to mention mixing with a low-level small casual cultivator. Both of them were a little confused. How could this small casual cultivator catch the eye of the senior brother? Su Fan didn't care about that, and he didn't want to get close to him. He was busy there, listening to the few people drinking and chatting with his ears tilted. Brother Cheyenne, you should have returned to the sect directly. What's wrong with destroying two scums of the Xiao sect? I should have killed them with my sword earlier. The girl's tone was quite angry, as if she was standing up for her brother. Su Fan could tell that there was something behind this. That's right. When has our sword sect ever been a coward? What's wrong with the immortal sect in the Central Plains? They dared to show off in front of our sword cultivators. We will destroy them anyway. The tall and strong sword cultivator also looked indignant. Su Fan's gossip fire burned fiercely. He didn't expect that old Yi was seeking refuge here. Haha, do you think I want to stay in this place where rabbits don't shit? How can I not listen to master's words? Su Fan was unhappy when he heard what old Yi said. How can you talk like that? Your home is the place where rabbits don't shit. Those immortal sects have bad intentions. They fight the demon sect to death, but they always let our sword sect take the lead. Let me tell you, they fight as they please, and we have nothing to do with the sword sect. That's right, our sword sect helps them fight the demon sect to death, and they also give us orders. We give them face. After listening to the complaints of the two, Su Fan had some new understanding of the situation in this world. He originally thought that sword cultivators were also disciples of immortal sects, but it seems that sword cultivators don't think so, and they have always regarded the sword sect as independent. The reason why these sword madmen came to Kin State to join in the fun is to hone themselves and come to kill people and fight. This world is not so peaceful. It is so complicated even on the surface. I heard that Senior Brother Cheyenne met Gu Qinghuan. Well, she fought with you. Senior Brother Cheyenne, did you let her go because she was pretty? Don't go out and say anything nonsense. Gu Qinghuan is the only good seedling in the Ghost King sect. It is said that several old demons almost emptied the sect in order to cultivate her. This witch is not simple. You must not underestimate her when you meet her in the future. Su Fan was also quite surprised. It turned out that Gu Qinghuan was so powerful. Fortunately, my buddy escaped quickly. No matter how powerful she is, what can I do? Come and bite me if you have the guts. By the way, how did you get here? Don't mention it. Several demon sects in Yangzhou are ready to make a move. I heard from the uncle in the sect that it seems to be instigated by the true demon sect of Liangzhou. Several sword sects in Ganzhou and Lanzhou have sent people here. It is said that people from the immortal sect in the Central Plains have also come to Yangzhou. Yishan took a sip of wine, and his eyes were full of excitement. Haha, after decades of peace, it seems that Yangzhou is going to be in chaos again. Su Fan didn't even need to look at old Yi. Just by listening to his tone, he knew what expression he had now. Can't these sword madmen be quiet? Fighting and killing is so interesting. Damn, this life is unbearable. It seems that the Western Wasteland has always been in chaos. The battles between the immortal sect and the demon sect are very fierce, and even the immortal sect of the Central Plains has got involved. The situation is not good. If it really doesn't work, just leave this place of trouble. Seeing that the two fellow disciples were eager to try, Yishan waved his hand. Don't get excited so early. At least in the next few years, The two sides won't fight. Well, the uncle in the sect also said that this time several immortal sects in the Central Plains and many demon sects in the Western Wasteland will come to join in the fun. It is estimated that there will be no fighting for a while. Humph, the immortal sect is troublesome, just kill them directly. After listening to what Yashin and the others said, Su Fan was relieved. Fortunately, a few years later, he has broken through to the late stage of key training. At that time, he will have some ability to protect himself, at least he will not be at the mercy of others like now. While Su Fan was daydreaming, the sword cultivator girl came over. She squatted beside Su Fan, holding a skewer of meat in her hand. Her mouth was greasy and twisted. How did you know senior brother Cheyenne? How else can you know each other? You just met like that? Impossible, senior brother. He rarely talks to people on weekdays. Su Fan heard the meaning of the girl's words. That is, how can you, a low-level casual cultivator, climb up to the high branch of old Yi? Su Fan smiled, turned his head and leaned over, whispering. Do you like old Yi? The girl jumped up as if she had been electrocuted, and her little face was red. She felt something was wrong and squatted down again. Don't talk nonsense. How can I? The girl stuttered and opened her mouth for a long time, but couldn't say a complete sentence. Finally, she left in embarrassment. Su Fan smiled. Although I can't beat you, I will squeeze you to death. The emotional intelligence of these sword cultivators is just so-so. After a long time, the girl came over again and whispered beside her. How did you know that I like my senior brother? Su Fan rolled his eyes. Do you think I'm stupid? Your horny look is written on your face. But he certainly can't say that. No matter what, he can't do anything to offend the sword cultivators. I guessed it. Old Yi is so charming. You female cultivators will definitely admire him. The girl let out a long breath, smiled shyly, and felt much better. Then don't tell senior brother Cheyenne. Su Fan nodded. I'm so free, I don't care about your shit. 3 sword cultivators got together to drink, and he didn't mean to get close. After grilling the skewers, Su Fan sat aside and ate his own, thinking about the information he had just heard. He still had to improve his cultivation speed as soon as possible. Just now, I heard what Lao Yi said that this broken place in the Western Wasteland has never been so peaceful. Yongzhou, where Su Fan is now, belongs to the northeastern edge of the Western Wasteland. The Central Plains Immortal Sect has been infiltrating Yongzhou and trying its best to prevent the Western Wasteland Demon Sect from advancing eastward. If it weren't for the strong support of the Central Plains Immortal Sect, Yongzhou might have long been reduced to the territory of the Demon Sect. Su Fan doesn't care about the Immortal Sect or the Demon Sect, he just wants to cultivate in peace. But judging from the current situation, it is definitely not possible. In a few years, there will be a battle between the Immortal Sect and the Demon Sect. When the gods fight, the little ghosts suffer. How can a low-level casual cultivator like Su Fan stay out of it? Chapter 32, Butchering an Ox. Yi Xian's 2 fellow disciples left at night. Old Yi couldn't sit still after hearing the news that the Western Wilds would be in chaos again. The next day, he took Su Fan back to Shaoyuan Market by shuttle. Yi Xian sent Su Fan home, threw him a storage bag, and left. Su Fan held old Yi's storage bag, his eyes widened. The sword cultivator was so rich that he gave me the storage bag of chiffon as soon as he said it. Since it was given, why should I be polite? I took it. Su Fan scanned it with his spiritual sense, and found that there were 2 iron-skinned barbaric bulls in the storage bag. With a boom, he threw an iron-skinned barbaric bull into the small courtyard, and the small courtyard could hardly hold it. Su Fan looked at the monster beast as big as a small mountain, and cursed in anger. Such a big iron-skinned barbaric bull weighs more than 10 tons, and it is not an easy task to deal with it. Old Yi really doesn't regard himself as an outsider. He patted his butt and left, and I have to work hard. In this weather, fresh meat can't be kept for long. Su Fan slapped his storage bag, summoned his long sword, made a gesture, and instantly slashed the flying sword at the iron bull. He controlled the long sword to fly up and down, cutting the iron bull into pieces. Fresh sirloin meat from the belly of the cow is still made into soy sauce meat. Pick out the fat and lean parts and cut them into strips. Soak them in the cooked sauce and feed them for 3 days, and then hang them in the yard to dry. He specially bought a dozen large water tanks from the market, otherwise they really couldn't fit. The tenderloin of the waist and ribs, commonly known as fillet or beef tenderloin, is the most tender part of the beef, and can be fried, grilled, or shabu-shabu. Especially the fillet steak, as long as it is fried to 3 or 5 well done, it can conquer the taste buds with its fresh and juicy nature. The fat and lean part of the outer spine of the cow, with a circle of white fat on the outside, is more fragrant and tastes better because of the fat. Sirloin steak in the previous life is this part. When cutting meat, the tendons are cut together, and the texture is strong, the meat is hard and chewy. The eye meat near the ribs is the boneless part in the middle of the cow body, and the fat in the middle is like an eye. This part has soft meat and rich fat, and the taste is sweet and juicy. It can be shabu-shabu, grilled, or fried. There is also the front beef tendon meat. Although it has less fat, it can present a delicate taste after slow cooking over low heat. It contains more tendons, and can produce rich gelatinous texture after stewing, which is fragrant and flavorful. Su Pham cut the meat of these parts completely, put them into jars, and put them into storage bags. In addition, parts such as the upper brain, rice dragon, chest, cucumber strips, pepper strips, beef tendons, beef cheeks, beef ladders, oxtail, beef tripe, beef tongue, beef heart, and yellow throat are also cut and put into storage bags. By the way, there is also a bull whip that is more than 1 meter long. This is the whip of a monster. Fresh monster meat can be kept in the storage bag for a long time and can be used whenever you want. Then there were whole pieces of animal skins, as well as horns and other refining materials, which could be sold in the market. Although they were not worth much, grasshoppers were also meat. He put all the other miscellaneous parts into a storage bag and threw them outside. Su Pham's tossing and turning made the small courtyard full of blood and energy, and there were broken limbs everywhere. He was busy until the evening, and he was almost exhausted to death. The whole small courtyard was covered with blood and stains, and it took several cleaning talismans to clean it up. Su Pham didn't even have the energy to practice, so he went back to the room and fell asleep on the bed. A few days later, Yishayan came again. As soon as he landed in the yard, he smelled an alluring aroma. Turning around, he saw Su Pham sitting in front of an iron rack, frying meat. Seeing Yishayan coming, he waved to him. "Old Yi, you're here just in time. Let's try the freshly fried steak." Looking at the dried soy sauce meat hanging all over the courtyard, Yishayan was a little confused. Did he say it would take several days? He came to Su Pham's side, looked at the steak sizzling on the iron plate, and swallowed his saliva. "What are you doing now?" Su Pham took the tongs, turned the steak over, and sprinkled some small seasonings on it. "Fillet steak, it will be ready soon." He has not been idle these days. He customized a grill and a baking tray in the workshop in the market. He also ordered several hot pots, including the copper hot pot like the old BJ, Sichuan-style shuangayang pot, Cantonese hot pot, and several other types. He also bought a large number of seasonings. Although many seasonings were not available in the previous life, they can be replaced in this world. After mixing the small seasonings, the taste is almost the same. The monsters in the world of cultivation are nourished by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The iron-skinned barbarian bull looks rough and violent, but the meat is really tender. A piece of fillet steak that is nearly 2 feet long is cut more than an inch thick. Fry it for a while, and it's almost done. He took the steak off the iron plate, cut it into 2 pieces with a magic knife, put it on 2 plates, and then poured the sauce on the iron plate onto the steak. "This is yours, eat it while it's hot." As soon as Su Pham handed the plate to Lao Yi, this guy snatched it away and started to eat it. Hey, he took out the knife and fork that he had customized in the market, but before he handed it to Lao Yi, half of the steak on the plate was gone. Su Pham shook his head, then took a knife and cut the steak into small pieces. He stabbed a piece of steak with a fork and put it into his mouth with the sauce. Hiss, it smells so damn good. He didn't pay so much attention to eating monster meat before. This time he processed a whole iron-skinned barbarian bull. Facing the fresh beef like a small mountain, he remembered many ways of eating it in his previous life. Moreover, the monster was huge, and a tadpole-shaped tenderloin fillet alone was 2 meters long. There is also a several meter long tailbone and a meter wide outer spine. Anyway, a savage iron bull in the previous life would be like Wajai or something. Yishayan was holding the steak and eating it with his mouth full of oil. He looked back at Su Pham and was stunned at the time. "What are you holding in your hand?" Seeing that old Yi looked like he had never seen the world, Su Pham almost laughed to death. He picked up the knife and fork and demonstrated it once, then handed it to old Yi. "Brother, have you never eaten meat? You are really embarrassing for the sword cultivator." Old Yi, I'm so stupid, he glared at Su Fan, then took the knife and fork and started eating in the same way. Let's order the hanging oven skewers tonight. Su Fan was amused, old Yu was addicted to skewers. Let's have hot pot tonight. What? You won't understand even if I tell you. Just wait. Yishan was choked, glared at Su Fan, and lowered his head to continue eating meat. At night, Su Fan set up the pot. Today he used old BJ's copper pot. First he had to add carbon to the middle of the pot. Then he poured spiritual spring water into the pot and added a few small ingredients. After doing all this, he called old Yi out of the house. He took out a whole piece of meat, which weighed more than 10 pounds. He put it on the table next to him. Old Yi, I'll leave the job of cutting the meat to you. Yishan was about to refuse when he saw Su Fan wave his hand. Listen to me, you have to cut this meat. It's best to cut it as thin as paper, so it will taste good when you simmer it later. After Su Fan finished speaking, he took out a magic sword and handed it to Yishan. Old Yi took the magic sword, glanced at Su Fan, and then slashed it with a fierce sword. After all, he grew up playing with swords since he was a child. With the sword, he cut off a thin piece of meat. Su Fan picked it up and took a look. The almost transparent piece of meat was as thin as paper. Eating hot pot in the world of cultivation and letting a sword cultivator cut a meat is pretty awesome anyway. Old Yu was very fast. In a short while, he had cut a whole piece of meat. Su Fan had already made charcoal and put all kinds of ingredients on the table. Old Yu was confused. What kind of way to eat this was it? This kid was always thinking about these crooked ways in his mind. Here are the seasonings. They will be ready in a while. Dip them in and eat. Su Fan put the seasonings in front of old Yi and started to put the meat in. He picked up a thin piece of meat, dipped it in the boiling pot for a few times, took it out and dipped it in the seasoning, and then took a bite. Oh my god, authentic. Although the seasoning was slightly different, it really tasted a bit like old BJ. Yishan was stunned and started to eat like Su Fan. The meat melted in his mouth, and the fresh and spicy seasoning was so delicious. Su Fan started to pick up other ingredients, including green vegetables, black fungus, and ling mushrooms bought in the market, as well as tripe, yellow throat, and meatballs made from beef neck meat, which were very elastic. The only regret was that he couldn't find tofu. Su Fan was already very satisfied. He had never thought that he could taste the familiar tastes from his previous life when he came to the world of cultivation. In the next few days, old Yu came every day and had 2 meals a day. Su Fan didn't care. It was boring to eat alone anyway. After eating the old Beijing hot pot, he ate Sichuan hot pot and Cantonese hot pot. After the hot pot, he ate barbecue again. He tried Korean barbecue, fried meat in a clay pot, and grilled meat on a teppanyaki plate. Later, he tried roasted chest, braised meat strips, beef ladder, cold beef tongue, braised beef tendon, beef brisket stewed with radish, and tendon head and brain in one pot. Anyway, Su Fan made almost all the beef dishes he knew in his previous life. Originally, Yishan was never very particular about food, but when he came to Xiaoyang Fang, he was led astray by Su Fan. I would like to thank GUI Yubei and 2.20 for their rewards. I would also like to thank the second generation of online literature, any name you think of, 2.20, Zhuziang Tao Huazu, Kliji, Zhengayu Tongying, and the third generation of online literature for their recommendation votes. I am deeply grateful to all of you. Thank you all for your love and support. Chapter 33 I'm an honest person. For the next period of time, Su Fan's life returned to peace. He is a man with no ambitions, just wanting to live a peaceful life. Just like in his previous life, others went to Beijing, Shanghai and Guangzhou, determined to become people like Musk. But Su Fan chose to return to his hometown, a small town on the 18th line. Away from the hustle and bustle, content with the ordinary. Although he doesn't make much money, he can live a decent life if he doesn't spend too much. Games, douyin, variety shows, dramas, and the ladies in the live broadcast room are enough to meet all his spiritual needs. He didn't change much when he came to this strange world of cultivation. He set up a stall for an afternoon every day, and the rest of the time he practiced quietly, occasionally drinking with Lao Yi. In fact, this is the life he most dreamed of in this world of cultivation. It would be great if it would always be like this. Except that he occasionally thinks of his family and children, which makes him a little sad. By the way, there is also his ex-wife. Su Fan was very hurt when she was clamoring for a divorce. The two were separated for 2 years, and the woman finally grew up and came back to him. But Su Fan has become accustomed to the days without her. It's not a bicycle. If you lose it and find it, you can still ride it. So he decisively refused. Until now, he still can't understand why she called him a scumbag now when she wanted to divorce desperately. Alice. Why can't I forget this woman? That evening, Su Fan came back from the market and saw Lao Yi when he entered the house. As usual, he ignored him. He walked to the kitchen to cook for this old man. When Yi Xian saw him coming back, he took out 2 bottles of spirit wine from the storage bag and put them on the table. Let's get something with a brain today. Let's have a drink. Su Fan nodded, picked up a bottle of spirit wine and took a look. You said you would honor your master with spirit wine, but you drank it all, haha. Senior Chu Guan has a lot of it. As long as I say a word, he will care about a few bottles of spirit wine. Well, Lao Yi started to show off again, and Su Fan hurried into the kitchen. Stew a pot of tendons, cut a plate of braised tendons, mix a plate of beef tongue, add 2 stir-fried vegetables, and finally stew a bullwhip soup, all for Lao Yi's nourishment. 4 dishes and 2 soups, awesome enough. The table was full, very rich. Today Yi Xian was a little strange, and actually poured a glass of wine for Su Fan. This also made Su Fan a little flattered, and he looked at Lao Yi with a frightened face. Brother, what's wrong with you today? Yi Xian waved his hands, laughed, and then picked up a piece of beef tongue. I've always wanted to ask, what is this, beef tongue? The tongue of the iron bull. After he said that, he picked up the chopsticks and pointed to the bumpy place on the beef tongue. Look here, this is where the iron bull secretes saliva, that is, drool. Yi Xian spit out the beef tongue in his mouth with a puff. Then why didn't you tell me earlier? Su Fan spread his hands innocently and said, you didn't ask either. Yi Xian picked up another piece of bullwhip and asked, what is this? Su Fan was amused, and he leaned over and whispered. PFFT. Yi Xian threw the bullwhip back with disgust on his face, and pointed at Su Fan with anger on his face. After a while, he laughed. You kid are deliberately disgusting me, right? Nonsense. If not you, who should I disgust? How can I always thought you knew. Yi Xian snorted and raised his head to drink a glass of spirit wine. Tomorrow, I will leave. What? Su Fan was stunned for a long time. You are going back to the sect. Your junior sisters have been looking forward to it for a long time. He made a joke, but neither of them laughed. I don't know why, the atmosphere at the table suddenly became a little dull. The 2 of them didn't talk, drinking 1 cup after another, and after a while, they were a little drunk. Yi Xian picked up a piece of beef tongue, looked at it with a dazed look, and threw it back on the plate with a look of disgust. I won't go back to the sect this time, I will go directly to Qin State. I have already told the people of Qingxuan sect that even if I leave, no one in Shaoyuan market will dare to touch you. After hearing what old Yi said, Su Fan smiled. No need, I'm honest. Yi Xian was amused and said, you are still honest. If I didn't know you, I might have been tricked by you when I met you. Brother, you must have drunk too much? How dare I trick you? Yi Xian looked at Su Fan with contempt, and then took out a jade talisman. Take this jade talisman. When you break through the late stage of key training, go to Gan's Haoyuking sect. The sect master owes me a favor. Su Fan didn't speak for a long time and took the jade talisman silently. Yi Xian chuckled and said, don't be so sentimental, kid. Yuking sect is not far from our Jiang sword sect. If I wasn't greedy for what you made, I wouldn't bother with you. Su Fan forced a smile and raised his glass. Old Yi, I won't say anything. This glass is for you. Old Yi clinked his glasses with him, raised his head and drank the glass, then wiped his mouth. It's a pity for you, kid. If you had met me a few years earlier, Yuking sect is not big, but it is the most suitable for you. Although you have poor aptitude, you have good comprehension. If you enter the sect and accumulate some experience, you may not be able to build a foundation in the future. What's a pity? Isn't my life pretty good? Yi Xian heard this and slapped the table in anger. Bullshit, I've never seen someone as unmotivated as you. Don't you want to live forever? Su Fan picked up the knocked over wine bottle and chuckled. If I get it, I'm lucky. If I lose it, I'm doomed. Why should I be obsessed with it for my whole life? Yi Xian wanted to scold him, but after hearing what he said, he was stunned. Su Fan was a little confused. What happened to old Yi? But he didn't dare to ask. Su Fan could only sit there and drink silently. Alice. Old Yi is leaving. Although this guy is sometimes annoying, But when he heard that he was leaving, he felt empty. In fact, old Yi treated him well. Apart from other things, answering the difficulties he encountered in cultivation was already a favor of preaching. What's more, he gave him this jade talisman. Su Fan knew in his heart that this was a favor from old Yi, but it fell on him. Although he was indifferent by nature, he had one good thing, that is, he would repay a favor. Although this was not a big deal in Yi Xian's eyes, and he would not need him for anything in the future, he must remember this favor. Su Fan didn't know what happened to old Yi, and didn't dare to disturb him, so he sat there and drank silently. I don't know how many cups I drank, but I saw Yi Xian across from me suddenly shudder. Ha ha, looking at old Yi's hearty laughter, Su Fan was a little at a loss. What's wrong with old Yi? There is no mental hospital here. What if he is crazy? Yi Xian laughed for a long time before he calmed down. He took out another bottle of spirit wine from the storage bag, opened it and drank it. It's over, this guy is really crazy. Su Fan was so anxious that he stretched out his hand to grab the bottle in old Yi's hand, but was pushed away by old Yi. It was not until old Yi drank more than half of the bottle that he slammed the bottle heavily on the table. Bang! Su Fan was frightened and trembled. What the hell? If a sword cultivator is crazy, he won't chop around with a sword. Thanks to Random Name for the monthly ticket. Thanks to Book Friends 202212051611444606 and Book Friend 170,204,152,651,435. For the reward, thanks to Holiday Coffee, Random Name, Zhengayu Tongying, Bai Zhenau, and the 3 generations of online literature, and all the big guys for their recommendation votes. Lao Bu is deeply grateful. Thank you all for your love and support. Chapter 34. Look at your cowardly look. Old Yi didn't say anything, just stared at Su Fan with a smile. Su Fan's scalp was numb. Big brother, if you have something to say, please talk nicely, don't do it. Old Yi, I didn't mean to disgust you by making these 2 dishes today. Yi Xian smiled and poured him a glass of wine. Su Fan was even more panicked. Big brother, what exactly do you want to do? I don't know. Yi Xian pointed at him, then clapped his hands on the table and laughed. Look at your cowardly look. Don't say you are my friend Yi Xian when you go out in the future. He picked up the wine glass and clinked it with Su Fan. Come on, you must accompany me today. We won't go home until we are drunk. Su Fan chuckled, not realizing that old Yi's address to him had changed. You don't need me to say that. Come, drink. Looking at Su Fan's heartless look, Yi Xian couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. It is said that the most important thing in cultivation is the heart of Tao, but he used to be a little obsessed with appearances, just like Su Fan said just now. If I get it, I am lucky. If I lose it, I will die. Why should I be obsessed with it for a lifetime? Master once said that his sword heart was still a little short of perfection. In order to cultivate his sword heart, he even gave up the foundation. But after several years, although it was only a little short of perfection, his sword heart was still not perfect. Who would have thought that Su Fan's words would make him understand everything in an instant? Su Fan never dreamed that a poisonous chicken soup in his previous life would make old Yi realize the truth in one day. Many times, it is so wonderful. If it were a different occasion or a different person, even if the same words were said, it might not be useful to old Yi. He just said this sentence casually at the right time and in the right atmosphere. In fact, it was an opportunity, like a piece of paper, which was inadvertently pierced by Su Fan. Sword cultivators walk in danger and wander in the moment of life and death. They are born lonely. Yi Xian is the same, lonely and cold, always alone. I don't know what happened. He and this little casual cultivator actually get along well. Even if the two of them quarrel, it makes him very comfortable. In Yi Xian's view, it is the arrangement of heaven. Moreover, the perfection of the sword heart also made him have a great change in his view of Su Fan. In the past, he always thought that Su Fan was not motivated, heartless all day long, and only knew how to think about those crooked ways. Now he feels that his thinking is a bit biased. Su Fan's lazy personality makes his Tao heart more transparent. This is also the reason why many cultivators encounter bottlenecks and cannot break through after years of hard practice. The root cause is because of their deep obsession. Yi Xian knew in his heart that Su Fan's casual words would be of great help to him in the future. Then, old Yi was like a different person. He talked more and talked more. He hugged Su Fan and chattered nonsense. Both of them were drunk and sang and danced there. They were like two mental patients. Su Fan didn't know how much he drank. He only remembered that old Yi took out bottle after bottle of wine. Anyway, he was drunk and didn't remember anything. At noon the next day, Su Fan was awakened by thirst. He only felt that his mouth was dry, his head was swollen and painful, and his whole body was sore and weak. Su Fan sat down cross-legged and circulated the Hununggong. The spiritual energy circulated in his body for several cycles, and his body immediately recovered a lot. He exhaled a long puff of alcohol, and his mind was clear. Damn, I can't drink like this anymore. In fact, no matter how much alcohol you drink, it's not a big deal for a cultivator. If you circulate your spiritual power a little, the alcohol will naturally disappear. But it was different last night. Olji was leaving, and Su Fan was a little disappointed. It's hard to say when the next time the two meet. After all, cultivators are also human beings. Su Fan wanted to drink with old Yi, just like he said, not to go home until he was drunk. Hey! Where is old Yi? Did he leave without saying goodbye? Su Fan was about to go out to take a look, and saw a jade slip on the table in the hall. He walked over, picked up the jade slip and put it on his forehead. After a long time, Su Fan put down the jade slip and couldn't help sighing. His eyes were a little hot. This jade slip records some of Yushian's understanding of the sword. It covers his experience of practicing swords for many years, the experience and losses of controlling flying swords, and a large number of experience summaries of fighting. Although there is no inheritance of Jiang's sword sect in the jade slip, it is more precious than inheritance. For elite disciples of the sword sect like Yushian, his understanding of the sword will be included in the library of Jiang's sword sect in the future for younger disciples to observe and experience. Su Fan took out the jade talisman of Yuking's sect again and stroked it gently in his hand. Olji was right. What he lacked most now was systematic cultivation knowledge. Only by entering the sect could he make up for the missed lessons. Just go. Why do you have to make yourself owe such a big favor before leaving? He suddenly felt that the wind and sand were a bit strong, as if he was blinded. Su Fan came to the yard and looked at the dried soy sauce meat hanging all over the yard. Olji was most proud of this, and when he left, he didn't even say to bring him some. Forget it, he is like a big shot, and he probably can't cook for himself. Leave it for him. When he arrives in Ganzhou, he will definitely come to Yukingmen to find him often. Then, he can eat as much as he wants. I don't know why, but the yard seems particularly deserted today. Thinking of the scene of him and Lao Yi drinking and practicing sword in the yard in the past, it seems to be vivid. Su Fan let out a long breath and dispelled the melancholy in his heart. No matter what the future holds, at least he has a goal now. That is to break through the late stage of key training as soon as possible, and then take the jade talisman to Yukingmen. After entering the sect, he will settle down for a few years. And at that time, he will be able to see Lao Yi often. As for whether he was still practicing in Shaoyangfang before the breakthrough, Su Fan felt that there was no need to toss. According to Yushian's analysis, Yongzhou will not be in chaos within a few years. And before Lao Yi left, he had already asked King Sun sect to take care of him. Although Lao Yi likes to pretend on weekdays, what he says is still reliable. No matter what the King Sun sect is like, it will not offend an elite disciple of the sword sect just because of a low-level casual cultivator like him. Anyway, Lao Yi went to Qin State. And he will probably stay there for the next 2 years. This group of sword madmen may have all gone to Qin State. They can't wait, and they can't wait for the immortal sect and the demon sect to start the war earlier. Moreover, Shaoyangfang City is also the stopover point for the King Sun sect's flying boat, and it is very convenient to go to Ganzhou. If the immortal sect and the demon sect start a war, the news will definitely spread in Shaoyangfang, and it won't be too late to leave then. Nothing more to say, just practice. Su Fan returned to the practice room in the house, took out the small gathering spirit formation, sat cross-legged on it, took out 9 spirit stones and stuffed them into the card slot. Think about the past, I used to run around for a few spirit stones. Now, it's good, 9 spirit stones are gone in the time of farting, it's really a waste. Thinking of this, Su Fan's heart was bleeding. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, Sword Skills. The night was thick with stars twinkling. A bright moon hung high in the night sky, and the moonlight fell, covering the entire earth with a layer of bright gauze. 2 candles were burning in the practice room. Su Fan sat cross-legged on the small spirit-gathering array and lit a nourishing incense. The elegant and unique fragrance filled the room, and it could calm the mind and concentrate. A few months later, with the help of the small spirit-gathering array and Piangen, Su Fan finally practiced a 4th level of key training to perfection. In the past few days, he has faintly felt a chance of breakthrough. Su Fan took out a Piangen from the storage bag and put it in his mouth, and began to practice Unimaginable. The surrounding spiritual energy swarmed towards him. The fresh breath that came to his face made Su Fan feel that every cell in his body was cheering. As the exercises were running, the pores all over his body opened. The cool breath kept circulating in his meridians until it gathered into a stream. Unimaginable +1 message popped up in front of Su Fan. He was immediately excited. Then, my whole body felt hot, as if I was soaking in hot water, and an incomparable sense of comfort rose from my heart. This feeling made people feel like they were in a fairyland, floating in the air, and completely forgetting the outside world. Finally broke through. It was not until he had completed the 9th level of the skill that Su Fan slowly opened his eyes. He opened the game panel, and the data of Unimaginable and Realm had been updated. Realm, 5th level of key training. 1/100, technique, Unimaginable, 1st level. 44 out of 100. It took more than 7 months, and I finally broke through to the 5th level of key training. Although this speed of cultivation cannot be compared with those genius disciples of the sect, it is already quite fast. At least ordinary disciples of the sect must be far behind. In order to do all this, Su Fan also paid a heavy price, which was too damn expensive. 1 pian pill every 2 days, which added up to more than 500 spirit stones. The small gathering spirit formation requires 18 spirit stones every day, which is more than 3,000 spirit stones in total. Despite this, in Su Fan's opinion, this amount of spirit stones is worth it. Because after breaking through to the 5th level of key training, each advancement requires more time. When it comes to the late stage of key training, it is even more exaggerated. It can be said to be a step-by-step to heaven. And with each step forward, the required cultivation resources and consumed spirit stones will increase exponentially. Su Fan stood up and went outside the house. At this time, the courtyard was washed white by the moonlight, revealing a sense of tranquility away from the world. He took out the jade slip that Yashian gave him and put it on his forehead, then closed his eyes and began to study carefully. After a long time, Su Fan opened his eyes. I have to say that old Yi is really a very good person. The things recorded in this jade slip are definitely priceless treasures that cannot be bought by any amount of spirit stones. After these days of continuous study and speculation, Su Fan not only has a deeper understanding of the sword, but also has a much stronger ability to control magic tools. Originally, the way he controlled the magic tools was extremely monotonous and dull. Now Su Fan controls the shadowless needle to attack, which is more and more fierce. The shadowless needle is a sneaky and secretive way to kill the enemy. It draws on the sword cultivator's method of controlling the flying sword. Not only is the power greatly increased, but also has a strange edge. He took out the magic sword from the storage bag and began to practice the 9 extremes continuous slash in the yard. Now his swordsmanship is no longer the same as before. In the past, he just relied on the strength of his flesh and the power to create miracles, and chopped a few times. Now every slash he makes is round and natural, as if it was made by nature, with a faint sense of inexplicable power. Su Fan didn't know how many times he practiced in the small courtyard. As the proficiency increased by 1, it felt more and more right. After another 9 consecutive slashes, Su Fan put away the sword and stood up. He was sweating all over and panting. After a long time, his physical strength was restored. The magic sword in his hand trembled slightly, bent his knees and stretched his arms, and suddenly swept out with a sword. When the sword swept away, it seemed as if a strong wind had risen on the flat ground. Whirlwind slash, the body spun violently, and the sharp sword energy whistled out, and the whole courtyard was swept up by a terrifying storm. Against the wind, a sharp and fierce slash stirred up endless fierce winds, and no grass grew wherever it passed. Sacrifice slash, with 1 sword slash, it was like being on the battlefield, putting yourself in a desperate situation and then surviving, with no regrets and leaving no room for maneuver. Title / The arrow round seemed to turn into an endless and majestic stream of water, converging into rivers and lakes, and bursting out in an instant. Ghost wheel / With a murderous intent that contained souls and spirits, it was like the ghost energy of the netherworld, carrying the wind of purgatory. Void / It was like an invisible and immaterial wave, with ripples of light visible to the naked eye, and a sword cut through the void. Infinite / The sword energy was mighty and rippled the sky, killing gods and Buddhas. Heartless / One man and one sword, walking with a sword, slashing others and myself, slashing all the deadly enemies in the world. Raging / The courtyard was instantly filled with an extremely sad and angry atmosphere, with the sword's infinite sharpness, slashing down. With the end of the last move, the courtyard returned to peace. Su Fan could hardly hold the magic sword with both hands. He was sweating all over, and his body was shaking and almost unable to stand. Not only that, his spiritual consciousness was also greatly consumed. He dropped the magic sword, lay on the ground, and gasped. At this moment, a lot of information flooded into his mind, all of which were the understanding and experience of the 9 extremes continuous / Su Fan opened the game panel and smiled. 9 extremes continuous / succession. 1/1600 After practicing for so long, the swordsmanship has finally advanced. The next level of subtlety on the panel is actually succession. Just now, he slashed 9 swords in a row, and each slash was accompanied by an astonishing momentum. Compared with this subtlety, the power has increased several times. It was as if a door had been opened, allowing him to see a new world he had never seen before. Every slash made him feel an unprecedented sense of exhilaration. It was really cool, but it was too exhausting. He had to struggle to slash out these 9 consecutive swords, and at this moment, he had already exhausted all his physical strength. Su Fan knew very well that he had not fully comprehended the true meaning of sword power. What he had mastered was just the tip of the iceberg. After the swordsmanship broke through the Chengshi realm, there was more to practice. If all the spells and magical powers were upgraded to the Chengshi realm in the future, that would be awesome. The next step was to upgrade the magical power Thunder Ghost step and cooperate with the Chengshi realm's 9 extremes continuous / In the future, if there was a fight, as long as he got close, even if he was in the late stage of key training, he would dare to compete. Su Fan lay on the ground for a long time, and his physical strength had not recovered. His head was also dizzy and he couldn't get up. He couldn't do it this hard anymore. He had to practice one sword at a time in the future. Su Fan struggled to get up from the ground, staggered into the house, fell on the bed and fell into deep sleep. Chapter 36 From now on, I will protect you. In the next few days, Su Fan did not go to the market, but stayed at home to consolidate his cultivation. Only after his cultivation was completely consolidated did Su Fan come to the scattered stalls market and start selling goods. He also wanted to stay at home comfortably until he died, but it was really impossible. There was no way. He was poor. According to his way of cultivation, he took a pian pill every 2 days and used the small gathering spirit formation twice a day. Not to mention casual cultivation, even ordinary sect disciples could not afford it. In a year, he would have to spend 7 or 8,000 spirit stones alone. If he had not experienced several crises and seized some spoils, where would he get the spirit stones for him to squander? Without the small gathering spirit formation and pills, it would take at least more than a year to break through the 5th level of key training. Moreover, after breaking through to the 5th level of key training, he clearly felt that the effect of pian pill had begun to be greatly reduced in the past few days. It might be because of the advancement, or it might be that he had taken too many pian pills and developed a certain drug resistance. If he wanted to maintain the same cultivation speed as before, he could only change to pian pill. Pian pill costs 10 spirit stones each, and he felt distressed just thinking about it. With this calculation, at least 18,000 spiritual stones will be wasted in a year. But Su Fan has the qualifications of 4 spiritual roots. Besides smashing spiritual stones, what else can he do? After not coming for a few days, Shaoyuan market is still prosperous. Su Fan came to the scattered stalls market, spread a piece of iron-skinned barbarian bull skin, and put all the goods on it. Now, except for various talismans, which are still sufficient, other miscellaneous things have been sold out. At present, He still has more than 2,000 spiritual stones in his hand, which is not enough for half a year. Su Fan's stall can only make 200 to 300 spiritual stones a month. This is still relying on the talismans collected in the past. But if it is sold at this rate, there will be nothing left in a few months. This is not a solution. I have to think of a way. But besides drawing talismans, he really has no other way to make a living. He can't become a bandit cultivator. Su Fan's hair turned white with worry for the spiritual stones. At this time, Su Fan saw a familiar figure in the crowd. Su Wen was wandering around the market. He came to a stall with many talismans. He was just looking for a few more, so he squatted in front of the stall and started looking. Looking at old Su Fan smiled. In the past, he relied on an outer disciple of Shaoyong sect to make a living in the market. Now that King Sun sect has come, I don't know if old Su can still get in touch. Su Wen picked for a long time before picking up 2 talismans. Devours, how much are these 2 talismans? Cheng Hu, 18 spirit stones. Devours, can you make it cheaper? Haha, then I won't take your spirit stones, just take it and play with it. Hearing Su Fan say this, Su Wen was stunned at the time. Is this stall owner stupid? Looking at Su Wen with a confused face, Su Fan laughed. Old Su, why are you being so polite to me? Su Wen listened and pointed at Su Fan for a long time without saying anything. I don't know why, although this stall owner looks very strange. He makes him feel very familiar. Old Su tried to ask, who are you? Su Fan chuckled and said, we haven't had a drink together for a while. Hearing this, old Su finally guessed Su Fan's identity. You are Xiao Su. Su Fan quickly put his finger to his lips, then moved to the side and took out a stool. Come, sit here. Su Wen smiled with relief, crossed the stall and sat next to Su Fan. Brother, if it wasn't for you last time, Su Fan waved his hand and said, brother, let's not talk about this. Su Wen nodded, then looked at Su Fan's face with a puzzled look. Brother, what are you doing? Su Fan smiled bitterly and sighed. Alice. It's hard to say. Su Wen knew that Su Fan must have offended someone, but he didn't ask any more questions. Now I'm with a bunch of brothers, we're all working together to make a living. If you encounter any problems in the future, just come to me. Su Fan almost laughed out loud. He didn't expect that Lao Su, a man with thick eyebrows and big eyes, would also join this society. Of course, after all, you are my big brother. Lao Su patted Su Fan's shoulder and laughed. Haha. That's right, in the future in Shaoyangfang, I will protect you. Su Fan nodded, then thought for a while. Brother, you just need to know about my affairs. Lao Su frowned immediately and asked in a deep voice, brother, if you encounter any difficulties, tell me. Su Fan shook his head, telling you would be useless. Nothing, I just don't want to cause trouble. If you don't want to say, I won't ask. As I said, if you encounter any problems, you must come to me. After Lao Su finished speaking, he pulled Su Fan up. Let's go. It's been a while since we last met, let's have a drink. Su Fan couldn't persuade him, so he had to close the stall and go to a restaurant in Fangxi with Lao Su. The two found a seat by the window. Old Su was in a good mood today and ordered a large table of spiritual dishes and 2 bottles of spiritual wine. Su Fan calculated that this meal would cost at least dozens of spiritual stones. It seems that old Su is doing well. He is really capable and will never starve to death no matter where he is thrown. The two hadn't seen each other for a long time and drank heartily. Especially old Su, he was very excited. Last time, he hesitated again and again, and did not tell Su Fan about the invasion of the demon cultivators in the market. He was already very guilty, but later he survived with the help of Su Fan. So when he saw Su Fan again, he kept toasting him. Su Wen drank a little bit, and his tongue couldn't be straightened. Brother, no matter what happens in Shaoyangfang in the future, you must find me. Su Fan took a sip of wine and advised, Old Su, let's drink slowly. When old Su heard this, he immediately became excited again. Brother, I'm not bragging to you. Ask about Jiffentang and Shaoyangfang. Everyone has to give us some face. Su Fan smiled bitterly. Old Su was drunk. He could only accompany him. They waited until midnight before they came out of the restaurant. Su Fan supported Su Wen and walked towards his home. They came to an alley and old Su pointed inside. Brother, I'm here. You can go back. He was so drunk. How could Su Fan let him go home alone? I've sent you here. It's not a big deal. I want to get to know the door, haha. Yes, You haven't been to my house yet. Come to my house and sit down. We'll continue drinking. Su Fan shook his head. You are like this, and you are still drinking. He supported old Su and walked into the alley. Just after a few steps, Su Fan stopped. His eyes flashed with lightning and he frowned immediately. Su Fan hugged old Su and slowly backed away. But before he could back a few steps, he turned around suddenly and saw several people standing at the entrance of the alley. At this time, the people hiding in the alley also appeared, completely blocking their way. Chapter 37. This kid is too low-key. Su Fan knew that these people must be coming for Su Wen. At this moment, old Su was sober, and he pushed Su Fan. Brother, hurry up and leave. Su Fan was amused by his words. I want to leave, but where can I go? Brother, where are you going? Let's fight. He took out 2 Vajra talismans and slapped them on the 2 people. Old Su realized that the 2 people had been blocked in the alley. He knew that today might be a bad day. He took out a high-quality talisman from his storage bag and stuffed it into Su Fan's hand. Brother, I'm sorry, I will hold them for a while. You can escape when you see the opportunity. Su Fan took the talisman, which might be old Su's best treasure. The people on the opposite side were wearing black scarves and masks, and the leader was a casual cultivator of the 6th level of key training, who looked at them coldly. He said nothing nonsense and waved his hand to his men. Do it. More than a dozen casual cultivators at both ends of the alley took out magic swords and talismans and surrounded them. Su Wen took a deep breath. He was doomed today. But even if he died, he had to take a few people with him. He raised his hand and wanted to use his magic weapon. But before he could use the magic weapon, Su Fan, who was standing next to him, suddenly disappeared. Su Wen saw a black rope flying past him with a whoosh. He felt a cold breath spreading in the alley in an instant, and he couldn't help but shudder. He heard a series of heart-wrenching screams in his ears, and he was also dizzy. Several low-level casual cultivators rushed up and were entangled by the ghost whip. This evil magic weapon can not only corrode magic weapons, but also devour souls and attack the opponent's soul. Several casual cultivators were only in the initial stage of key training. How could they withstand the insidious and vicious ghost whip? Their souls were instantly devoured and turned into walking corpses. At the same time, Su Fan's figure had appeared on the other side. He threw out a handful of bone rod sand and before several casual cultivators could react, they were covered with it and fell to the ground screaming. The leading casual cultivator secretly cried out that it was not good. He quickly slapped his storage bag and wanted to sacrifice his magic weapon. Su Fan's eyes flashed with lightning, and the other party only felt a buzz in his head, and his eyes went black in an instant. Before he could recover, Su Fan was already standing in front of him. He didn't even draw his sword, but stretched out his hand to grab the other party's neck and swung it to the side. Bang! The other party's head was pressed against the wall of the alley by Su Fan, and it exploded instantly, with blood and brain matter bursting everywhere. The splattered blood and brain matter also splashed on his arm. Su Fan shook the blood off his hand with disgust, and took out a piece of cloth to wipe his hand clean. Su Wen was originally in a desperate posture, but who knew that more than a dozen people were gone in an instant. Especially the 6th level key training cultivator on the opposite side, he knew that person. The other party was the mortal enemy of Jif and Tang, the second in command of Wu Ian Gang. He was born as a bandit cultivator, and was cruel and violent. He was also very powerful and had a great reputation in Shaoyangfang City. Who would have thought that he would be hit in the head by Su Fan in a face-to-face encounter? Whoosh! A black shadow whizzed past Su Wen and devoured the souls of several howling casual cultivators on the opposite side. After devouring the souls of more than a dozen casual cultivators in succession, the ghost whip became more and more gloomy and terrifying, twisting in the air a few times and heading straight for Su Wen. Su Fan moved and appeared beside old Su. The Tao seed in his body exploded, and purple electric currents instantly rushed out of his arms, grabbing the ghost whip. The gloomy and terrifying ghost whip became obedient at that time and was obediently put into the storage bag by Su Fan. Su Fan cleaned up the battlefield, piled up more than a dozen corpses together, and threw out a fireball talisman. With a bang, the corpses piled up in the alley were instantly engulfed by the flames that shot up into the sky. Su Fan grabbed Su Wen's arm and turned to walk out of the alley. Old Su, don't go home tonight. Old Su nodded with a dull look in his eyes and turned to look at Su Fan. Brother, are you an evil cultivator? Su Fan was amused and shook his head. I'm not an evil cultivator. I got that magic weapon from an evil cultivator. Old Sue was relieved. As long as they were not evil cultivators, it would be fine. As soon as they walked out of the alley, several cultivators suddenly fell from the sky and blocked their way. When Su saw them, he was stunned. These people were from the King sect. They should be the law enforcement team patrolling the market at night and were attracted by the fire. Of course, it is also possible that the other party was bribed by the Wu Ian gang. But Old Su thought it was unlikely. The King sect's law enforcement team was composed of inner disciples. This group of people was arrogant and looked down on casual cultivators. The leader, a King sect cultivator in the late stage of key training, looked at them coldly. You killed those people just now. Su-wen was so scared that he couldn't speak. Su-fan had no choice but to step forward. I killed them. They were bandits who tried to rob us in the alley just now. The King sect cultivator obviously didn't believe it, and he sneered. Stop talking nonsense, come with us. Su-fan knew that if he really went to their place, he would be slaughtered. Suddenly, he had an idea. He reached out and took out a flying sword talisman from his storage bag and threw it to the King sect cultivator opposite. Seeing that Su-fan didn't obey, the other party was already a little impatient and was about to order someone to take down the two men. Su-fan threw a flying sword talisman over. He took it and took a closer look, and his face changed immediately. The other party looked up at Su-fan and his attitude became much gentler. Since you are encountering bandits, then you go back first. I'll take this talisman first. After we investigate it clearly, we will return it together. Su-fan breathed a sigh of relief, nodded, and then pulled Old Su away. Old Su, who was drunk at first, is now completely drunk. He has seen the King sect law enforcement team. They are different from the outer disciples who manage the market. These guys are always unreasonable, simple and rough, and don't even give the opportunity to defend themselves. Not to mention the independent cultivators. They don't even take the outer disciples of their own sect seriously. Brother, which high branch have you climbed up to? Su-fan was amused after hearing what Old Su said. Brother, if I climbed up to high branch, would I have to set up a stall in the market? Su-wen also thought this was true, but he thought it was not right. He saw the changes on the faces of the King sect disciples with his own eyes, and they were obviously afraid of Su-fan. But Su-fan didn't say anything, and Old Su was not convenient to ask, so he could only follow Su-fan hurriedly. It was already midnight, and Su-fan had to take Old Su to his home. Old Su followed Su-fan into the yard, and his eyes changed. Su-fan had been using the breath-hiding technique to suppress his cultivation to the third level of key training, and he deliberately wore tattered clothes. So when Old Su met Su-fan in the market, he thought he was not doing well. But when he saw Su-fan's residence, he was a little unsure. The rent of this yard would cost at least 200 or 300 spirit stones per year. Old Su originally wanted to help Su-fan in the future, but now it seems that he doesn't care about his little money. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. This kid is too low-key. Chapter 38 Still borrowing the light of Old Yi. The next day, Su-wen got up early. In fact, he didn't sleep much the whole night, tossing and turning in excitement. When Su-fan got up, Su-wen had already prepared breakfast. Old Su was so excited, but Su-fan didn't take it seriously at all. I'll go to the market to set up a stall later. You stay at my house for 2 days and wait until things calm down before talking. Old Su was immediately anxious. Brother, what are you afraid of? The people in the King sect's law enforcement team are giving you face. You will have to walk sideways in Shaoyangfang in the future. Su-fan waved his hand and said, Brother, you can mess around with your gang. I don't want to get involved in your shitty things. After hearing what he said, Old Su was a little confused. Brother, in the entire Shaoyangfang market, let alone us casual cultivators, even the outer disciples of the King sect can't match the inner disciples of the law enforcement team. Su-fan was amused by Old Su. This guy was doing this. Brother, do you want me to match up with the people in the law enforcement team? Seeing that Old Su kept nodding, Su-fan waved his hand. I can't do this. Su-fan turned and left, while Old Su sighed. Why didn't Su-fan seize such a good opportunity? Su-fan knew what Old Su meant. If it was Old Su, he could really make him understand, but Su-fan didn't want to. He just wanted to stay at home comfortably and didn't want to get involved in other people's affairs. Coming to the market again, Su-fan set up a stall to sell goods as before. It was as if nothing happened last night. In the afternoon, a man dressed in King Suan-sek's clothes came to his stall. The other party's cultivation was very high, and Su Fan didn't dare to use the Thunder Eyes. But just by the other party's momentum, he knew that he was at least at the 9th level of key training and should be the head of the law enforcement team. I am Meng Fan from King Suan sect. You can come to me directly if you have any problems in the future. After hearing what the other party said, Su Fan hurriedly cupped his hands. Thank you very much. The other party looked at Su Fan deeply and handed Yi Xian's flying sword talisman to Su Fan. This is the letter from senior brother Xian. Keep it well. After he finished speaking, he looked at Su Fan again, then turned and left. Su Fan put the letter into his storage bag, smiled bitterly and shook his head. These disciples of the sect, all of them are arrogant. If it weren't for old Yi's instructions, they wouldn't pay any attention to him. At this moment, Su Fan suddenly felt that the surroundings were very quiet. He looked around and was shocked. The scattered stalls market seemed to have pressed the time-stop device, and almost everyone looked at him in amazement as if they were hit by a spell. Su Fan slapped his forehead. It was too hasty. He probably won't be quiet in Shaoyuan market in the future. Su Fan didn't expect that Meng Fan of King Suan sect was so straightforward that he actually came to the scattered stalls market to see him directly. In fact, he didn't feel anything just now, until now he reacted. The head of the King Suan sect's law enforcement team came to the stall to see him in person. How do you want these scattered cultivators to view this matter? This stall can't be set up anymore, so I'd better go home and stay for a few days. Su Fan quickly packed up his stall, carried the broken package, and then left the market in a panic under the gaze of all the casual cultivators. He didn't feel relieved until he entered the yard. Su Fan had made up his mind that he would definitely not go to the market again during this period of time, and wait until people forgot about this matter. He thought well, but someone came to the door in the afternoon. The first one to come was Tae-hal, which was responsible for the scattered stalls in the market. The person who came was a polite middle-aged casual cultivator. He said that he had offended Su Fan before and asked Su Fan not to blame him. He threw down a storage bag and said that he was returning the stall fee he had collected before, and then left. Su Fan opened the storage bag and put 500 spirit stones in it. This is. How many years will he have to keep so many spirit stones? Damn it, since it's given, just take it, it's all ill-gotten gains anyway. Su Wen was dumbfounded. The leader of Tae-hal was protected by several outer disciples of King Suan sect. Then, the leader of the Wu Ian gang who set an ambush last night came. A cultivator in the late stage of key training entered the yard and knelt down to Su Fan. He was a grown man and burst into tears. He kept saying that it was the subordinates who acted on their own initiative and that he was more wrong than Meng Jiangyu. Then a large group of people began to move things into the yard. After Tae-hal left, people from other gangs also came, including the people from Jifanhua where Lao Su was. Even several shops in the market came to join in the fun. Su Fan was stunned. When had he ever experienced such a scene? Fortunately, there was Lao Su, who was considered a person of occasion. Su Fan closed the door and simply refused to see anyone. All these welcoming and sending off matters were handed over to Su Wen. It was not until the evening that it finally calmed down. Lao Su walked into the house with a rosy face, picked up the teacup and filled it with water, and then picked up a list. Brother, I just calculated. Su Fan was annoyed and interrupted him with a wave of his hand. Okay, I don't want to listen now. Old Su laughed and said, okay, I'll tell you tomorrow. He hesitated for a moment and said, the head of our Jiffin Hall asked me to tell you that I will give you 30% every month in the future. Su Fan was stunned and asked, why? Old Su laughed and said, you are now the elder worshipper of our Jiffin Hall. You don't have to do anything every day. Just sit and collect spirit stones. Su Fan was immediately angry. This group of people just wanted to show off under their name. I won't do it. Old Su smiled bitterly, then patted his chest to guarantee. Brother, you can rest assured that I am here. Our Jiffin Hall will not use your name to cause trouble. In fact, we just don't want to be bullied. Su Fan listened to what Old Su said, thought about it and nodded. Okay, worship it, anyway, I won't care if something happens. Seeing that Su Fan agreed, Old Su bowed continuously. If the Jiffin Hall is causing trouble everywhere, I will be the first to quit. Su Fan smiled bitterly. It would be fine to join a hall, so that other gangs would not harass him again. At least there was Lao Su watching the Jiffin Hall, and he would know immediately if anything happened. In the following days, Su Fan closed the door and refused to see visitors. He stayed at home every day to practice drawing talismans, and had a drink with Lao Su at night. His life was very leisurely. A few days ago, he was still worried about the spirit stones. Who would have thought that there would be people delivering spirit stones to your door every month without setting up a stall? The spirit stones sent by those gangs alone, added together, are at least 7,000 to 8,000. And every month, Jiffin Hall has an income, according to Lao Su, it is at least 200 to 300. This is still now. With Su Fan as a worshipper in the future, the income of Jiffin Hall will increase several times. Anyway, there is no need to worry about spirit stones in the next 1 or 2 years. At first, Su Fan was still a little uneasy, but after a few days, he thought it over. In the end, he still borrowed the light of Lao Yi. Anyway, I already owe him so many favors. Too many lice won't bite, and too many debts won't worry me. Chapter 39, The True Explanation of the Ghost Path. It's autumn again, and the leaves are yellow. The midday sun in autumn is still very hot. Su Fan sits on a recliner in the yard, basking in the sun leisurely. There is a clay stove on the stone table next to him, and the teapot is steaming. Su Fan has been looking at it for a long time, but he has been too lazy to move. The spiritual tea is still left by Lao Yi. Every time he puts a few leaves, he can make several brews. Until now, there are still a lot left. Looking at the boiling spiritual tea, he misses Lao Yi a little. Calculating the time, Su Fan has been in this world of cultivation for almost a year. Now Su Fan is definitely a legendary figure in Shaoyuan market. Not to mention those casual cultivators, even the Qingxuan sect disciples in the market know that there is a person like him. Brother is not on the world, but there are always legends about him in the world. Anyway, his current status in Shaoyuan market is very transcendent. Although the attitude of the people of Qingxuan sect towards him is not to contact, not to provoke, and not to pay attention to him. But for casual cultivators, it is different. If someone else had his status, he would definitely show off in the market every day. He would build a big house and marry more than a dozen concubines. But Su Fan never showed his face. He didn't dare to go to the market for fear of being watched, so he just stayed at home. Fortunately, he still had 2 identities. Occasionally, when he was bored at home, he would change his face and go to the market for a stroll. These past few months, Su Fan was like a dream. Old Su came every day, just like a housekeeper. All the trivial matters in life, even buying a few bottles of elixir, were handled by him personally. Old Su wanted to find a few young and beautiful female cultivators to serve Su Fan's daily life. But the girls in the shop and the female bodhisattva had a great influence on him. He always felt uneasy about the female cultivators in this world. Who knows if they are the nails sent by the demon sect, so he simply refused. Now he doesn't even have to worry about eating. 3 meals a day are delivered to his home by the people of the Gale Hall. They are cooked in different ways every day, and they are all signature dishes of the best restaurants in the market. In addition to practicing and drawing talismans, he would bask in the sun in the yard and lie on a recliner in a daze. There was no shortage of spiritual stones, and no one came to disturb him. Su Fan enjoyed this kind of corrupt life very much. After living 2 lives, this was actually the life he had longed for the most. But he had never lived such a life before. For some reason, he always felt it was unreal. The experience of his previous life told him that life was not satisfactory, 8 out of 10 times. It was not a good thing to be too smooth. Whenever life got a little better, there would always be inexplicable changes, and some small setbacks would be encountered. On the contrary, there was nothing wrong with ordinary days. In any case, cherish it while you can. Anyway, this kind of good life will not last long. When the battle between immortals and demons comes, who knows what Yangzhou will become. At this time, Lao Su, carrying 2 food boxes, pushed the door and walked into the yard. He glanced at the teapot on the stone table, quickly put down the food box, walked over to take down the teapot, and poured a cup of spiritual tea for Su Fan. Looking at Su Fan lying on the recliner, Su Wen couldn't help shaking his head and smiling bitterly. He had never seen anything like this. Staying at home for several months without going out, if it were him, he would have gone crazy. But Su Fan was willing to do it, and would rather lie flat until he died. Brother, it's time to eat. After saying this, old Su went into the house with a lunchbox. Su Fan lazily moved his body, picked up the teacup on the stone table and took a sip, then got up from the recliner. He stretched and went into the house. Lunch was 4 dishes, 1 soup, and a large bowl of spiritual rice. Su Fan had a big appetite, and each dish was very filling. He ate with a rice bowl in his hand, and Su Wen beside him chatted with him about what happened recently in the market. Because of Su Fan, the Swift Wind Hall has developed well in Shaoyangfang. All parties have given him face, and the former mortal enemy, the Black Cloud Gang, is almost a branch of the Swift Wind Hall. Su Wen is now the second in command of the Swift Wind Hall, and is also considered a top figure in Shaoyangfang. There's no news from Qin recently, right? After hearing Su Fan's words, Su Wen shook his head. I haven't heard any news, but there are more and more flying boats coming from Ganzhou and Lanzhou. Su Fan knew that the Xianzhuang had begun to prepare for the war in a few years. It seems that if the war doesn't start soon, they can still relax for another 2 years. After old Su left, Su Fan came to the basement. He took out the palm-sized evil ghost banner from the storage bag and pinched a strange seal with his left hand. His lips moved slightly and he chanted a strange spell. The evil ghost banner moved without wind and instantly turned into a black giant banner several meters in size. The whole basement became gloomy. Su Fan pointed with his right hand, and thick black smoke surged out of the evil ghost banner, and the whole basement was instantly shrouded in black smoke. The black smoke gradually condensed and gradually turned into black figures. Among the countless ghosts, a female figure in a white ancient dress appeared faintly. This is an evil ghost, suspended 1 foot on the air, floating with toes pointing down, and her hair drooping to the ground. In the black hair parted in front of the forehead, a face was pale, and the eyes were completely black, with no pupils. The black nails that popped out from the 2 slowly raised hands were 2 feet long, and looked like 10 slender curved black blades. A chuckle similar to that of a human woman came out of the toothless mouth of the evil ghost, carrying a gloomy wind, sweeping out, as if it could freeze a person's soul. The dozens of evil ghosts behind her also began to show their miserable green faces, which were extremely hideous and terrifying. A gloomy and extremely piercing hissing sound emerged from all directions. The sound was extremely terrifying, with endless resentment and coldness. That kind of terrifying feeling, overwhelming, rushed towards Su Fan. It was too scary. Su Fan quickly pinched his fingers and chanted a spell. The huge evil ghost banner moved without wind, and dozens of ghosts turned into black smoke again and were sucked into the black banner. Seeing that the ghosts in the basement were all collected in the evil ghost banner, Su Fan breathed a sigh of relief. Last time Su Fan was ambushed in the alley. He used 2 evil cultivation tools, which really worked well. The magic and tools of evil cultivators and demon sects are insidious and treacherous, and are specifically designed to defeat the tools of immortal sects. Today Su Fan took out the evil ghost banner and wanted to try out the power of this tool. Who would have thought that a bunch of evil ghosts and fierce ghosts would appear, and he was almost scared to death. It is not human for ghost cultivators to be with ghosts every day. However, the power of this evil ghost banner should not be underestimated. At least in certain environments, it will be as insidious and vicious as rotting bone sand and ghost whip, and it is hard to guard against. Especially when used to sneak attack immortal sect cultivators, it will definitely have unexpected effects. Thinking of this, Su Fan left the basement and came to the yard. He lay down on the recliner and took out a book from the storage bag. It was the true explanation of the ghost path, and he read it seriously. Thanks to Holiday Coffee, Zhengayu Tongying, Ultraman 999, 220 and all the big guys for their recommendation votes. Lao Bu is deeply grateful. Thank you all for your love and support. Chapter 40 Sister Sadako. Su Fan took out this true explanation of the ghost path and originally just wanted to flip through it casually. Who would have thought that he would read it until the evening? In fact, Su Fan has always been quite repulsive to the things of the demon sect. He believes that there is no difference between evil cultivators and demon cultivators. It was not until he read this true explanation of the ghost path that he realized that demon cultivators and evil cultivators are essentially different. The demon sect's skills, like the immortal sect, are all orthodox methods passed down from generation to generation in ancient times. Even the immortal sect admits this point, and the 2 paths of immortals and demons are just different paths. The immortal sect and the demon sect are incompatible, but in fact it is still a dispute over interests. Don't think that when the immortals and demons are in dispute, The demon sect will hire evil cultivators to destroy everywhere within the sphere of influence of the immortal sect, but the attitudes of the immortals and demons towards evil cultivators are actually the same. Although the demon sect cultivators are fierce and brutal, they will not easily attack mortals in the secular world. After all, mortals are the foundation of both immortals and demons. Evil cultivators don't care about that and often stir up trouble in the mortal kingdom of the secular world. Therefore, whether it is the immortal sect or the demon sect, they will severely crack down on the evil cultivation organizations within their sphere of influence. The spiritual energy in this world of cultivation also has some categories. Like the basic 5 elements of spiritual energy, gold, wood, water, fire, and earth, there are also wind, thunder, ice, yin and other spiritual energy. Just like sword cultivators, most of their spiritual roots are gold spiritual energy. Demon cultivators who practice ghost cultivation methods also need qualifications, and the best qualification is the extremely yin body. The extremely yin body is the heavenly spiritual root among ghost cultivators. The speed of practicing yin zingongfa is very fast, and they are more adept at controlling ghosts and ghosts, or performing some more powerful yin zing spells and secret arts. Of course, cultivators with ordinary spiritual roots can also practice ghosts. According to the true explanation of Ghost Dao, ghosts, like cultivators, are also divided into levels. They are ghosts, evil ghosts, ghost soldiers, ghost generals, and ghost kings. Ghosts are the souls of people who still have obsessions after death, or they stay in the world because of feng shui and geography. After being subdued by ghost cultivators and refined, they become ghosts, evil spirits and ghost soldiers, corresponding to the third stage of key training. Ghost generals and ghost kings correspond to the foundation building stage and golden elixir stage. As for the later levels, this book does not introduce them. The true explanation of the Ghost Dao is consider the entry inheritance of the Ghost King sect, which is the practice of ghost cultivators in the key training stage. The book records a ghost cultivation practice, the secret of the netherworld, and more than a dozen ghost spells in the key training stage. Forget about the practice, but ghost spells can be studied. Su Fan thinks it's good to raise a few ghosts, usually used for reconnaissance and vigilance. You can also use the evil ghost banner to ambush people during a fight. Su Fan is very satisfied with the power of the evil ghost banner. The scene in the basement just now is a bit creepy when he thinks about it now. He didn't understand anything yet, and he directly released a group of evil ghosts. He almost scared him to death. Especially the female ghost in the black banner. Judging from her momentum, she should be able to reach the level of a ghost soldier. If trained well, she will definitely be a good helper. Su Fan decided to call her sisters Henzi. As for the remaining ghosts and evil spirits, they will be cannon fodder in the future. The two most basic introductory spells in the true explanation of Ghost Dao are Ghost Controlling Technique and Ghost Contract of the Netherworld. Ghost Controlling Technique, as the name suggests, is the spell to control evil spirits. Ghost Contract of the Netherworld is to subdue and refine ghosts, and then put a spell mark on the ghosts to make them become ghost slaves of the monks. After mastering the ghost controlling technique, Su Fan can summon ghosts and evil spirits from the evil ghost banner at will. Not to mention the ghost contract of the Netherworld, he directly signed Sister Zhen. Ghost slaves who signed the ghost contract can communicate with the monks through their spiritual consciousness, which is exciting to think about. Ghost controlling technique is relatively simple and it is easy to get started. Ghost contract of the Netherworld is much more difficult, and it took a long time to master it. After learning the two spells, Su Fan returned to the basement excitedly and took out the ghost banner of the evil ghost. He used the ghost controlling technique, and a cloud of black smoke came out of the black banner, which instantly turned into a ghost, baring its teeth and claws in front of Su Fan. Looking at the ghost who was eager to pounce on him, he was not used to it. The Tao seed in his body exploded, and a purple electric current burst out from his right hand, frightening the ghost. With a whoosh, he hid directly at the edge of the basement and squatted in the corner to draw circles. "You little guy, you dare to show your teeth." He used the ghost controlling technique again to summon the ghost in front of him and looked at it carefully. A pale face, a tongue sticking out, and a pair of eyes without whites, looking at Su Fan aggrievedly. The image is a little worse, too ugly. Su Fan pinched his fingers and chanted a spell, and stretched out his left hand to the ghost. The ghost crossed his arms and huddled up, as if shouting, "Don't come over here." He pinched his left hand to make a seal, muttered to himself, and patted the ghost on the head. Buzz! Su Fan felt as if there was something extra in his mind, and then a wave of flattering thoughts came. What kind of work? Ow, you look so ugly, can you change your image? Ow, what the hell are you talking about? Ow, communicating with this guy is like talking to a cow. He waved his hand, and the ghost instantly turned into a ball of black smoke, and rushed back to the black banner as if he had been pardoned. Su Fan wanted to summon Sister Sadako, but he was still a little hesitant. That was a ghost soldier level ghost. If he really summoned her, he would not bite her again. But when he thought of the thunder seed in his body, he felt relieved. Su Fan pinched his fingers and chanted a spell, and a ball of thick black smoke emerged from the giant banner, instantly occupying most of the basement. The cold breath filled the air. The black smoke gradually condensed and manifested into a female figure in a white ancient dress. Hiss! Suddenly, a terrifying hissing shook Su Fan's brain. The ghost girl raised her arms, waving her 2-foot-long nails, and rushed forward fiercely. Waves of yin qi surged, and the coldness penetrated deep into his bones. His hands and feet stiffened in a moment, and his whole body seemed to be frozen in an instant. The thunder seed in Su Fan's body exploded. Countless purple electric currents flowed in his body, and in an instant, the icy breath was driven out of his body. He gathered the current to his right hand and punched it fiercely. Ah! Su Fan heard a shrill scream in his ears. The ghost girl was knocked away by his punch, and the ghost shadow was almost broken. There was a flash of lightning under his feet, and his body instantly bullied the ghost girl's side and punched and kicked her. All he needed was a whip and a candle. The ghost girl screamed and screamed, and the ghost shadow kept trembling, as if it would be annihilated at any time. Su Fan felt that it was almost done, and he condensed a seal with his left hand and slapped the ghost girl's head. Boom! There was an instant explosion in his mind, and a faint thought of pleading came. Su Fan waved his hand, and the ghost girl instantly floated in front of him, and the ghost shadow became much fainter. If you dare to show your teeth again, I will turn you into ashes. The ghost girl trembled, and a sad thought came to Su Fan's mind. Well, Su Fan was immediately excited and responded. Can't you change into a prettier look? This time, the ghost girl did not respond, but turned into black smoke again, and then reappeared as an image of a beautiful woman in ancient costume. Su Fan took a look and thought that this was almost right. Although it still looked gloomy, it was at least pleasing to the eyes. Well, from now on, you will be called Sadako. Chapter 41. You are an evil cultivator. After signing the ghost contract with Sister Zhen, Su Fan had another trump card. Not only that, he also signed all the 8 evil ghosts in the evil ghost banner. Su Fan decided to keep the remaining ghosts in the ghost banner first. As for the other spells in the true solution of the ghost path, Su Fan was not interested. Su Fan just wanted to keep a few ghosts for fun, and use them for reconnaissance, vigilance, or to summon them to relieve boredom when he was free. Anyway, he didn't want to follow the path of the ghost path. In a few days, Su Fan had mastered the ghost control technique to a small level, and he became more and more skilled in driving ghosts. But the basement was too small after all, and it was always too small to use. Su Fan didn't dare to use the ghost magic in the small courtyard, for fear of being discovered by the people of Kingsun sect, so he decided to go to Shaoyuan Mountain to try it out in the next 2 days. This morning, Su Fan had just gotten up when Lao Su came. He put down the food box, brewed a pot of spiritual tea with a clay stove next to him, and sat there drinking it. Old Su, I'm going to Shaoyuan Mountain tomorrow, so don't send me food these 2 days. Old Su put down his teacup and said, I'll go with you. No, I'm just going to relax, not go deep into the mountains. Okay, tell me when you come back. After Old Su finished speaking, he continued, by the way, I saw people from Shaoyuan sect in the market today. Su Fan took a bite of rice and glanced at Su Wen. What's going on? Shaoyuan sect finally opened its mountain gate this time. Old Su drank a sip of spiritual tea and shook his head. Senior Chu Guan of Kingsun sect will take people to Qin State tomorrow, and only a few outer disciples will be left in the market. For the safety of the market, the foundation building senior of Shaoyuan sect will be temporarily stationed in Shaoyuan Square. After hearing what Old Su said, Su Fan smiled bitterly and shook his head. It's not easy to get along with a small sect like Shaoyuan sect. The market of your own sect was occupied by others, and in the end you have to help watch the scene, and you dare not say a word. After Su Fan finished speaking, he suddenly frowned. The people of Kingsun sect left in such a hurry. Did something happen in Qin State? Old Su, why did the people of Kingsun sect return to Qin State? Su Wen thought for a while and said, I really asked. According to the Shaoyong sect disciple, it seems that they are escorting something back to the sect and will be back after a while. Su Fan breathed a sigh of relief. If that's the case, then there's nothing to worry about. The next day, Su Fan got up early. He ate the breakfast sent by old Su and then left the market. Su Fan didn't have a shuttle to travel, so he could only walk into the mountains. As soon as he walked out of the market, he saw more than a dozen flying boats flying from a distance, one of which landed near Shaoyong Square. Nearly 100 Kingsuan sect disciples who had been waiting here for a long time hurriedly boarded the flying boat and drove towards the direction of Qin State. Su Fan frowned. The people of Kingsuan sect were almost gone. What kind of thing would require so many people to escort? But he didn't think much about it. After all, they would be back after a while. It was almost noon when Su Fan walked into the mountains. Su Fan did not go deep into the mountains, but found a quiet place to camp on the edge. Because there are no monsters and spiritual herbs nearby, casual cultivators who enter the mountains will not waste time here. This is a naturally formed small valley with beautiful scenery. To the north is a cliff that towers into the clouds, and dense climbing plants cover the mountain wall. A waterfall flows down the steep mountain wall. There is a small pool below, with spring water gurgling and splashing. The mist is entangled, like a dream. Such a good place is definitely a treasure for outdoor camping. This time he brought a grill, and the seasonings and other things are quite complete. He set up the tent made in the market by the pool and put a lounge chair. Su Fan set up the grill and put the skewers of meat that he had fed all night. After the skewers were grilled, he took out a bottle of spiritual wine and sat on the lounge chair to drink by himself. It felt so good. The only regret is that it would be nice if he had a girl. Yes, he has a girl too. Sister Zhen, come out. Su Fan waved his hand and took out the evil ghost banner to summon Sister Zhenzi. Sister Zhen had black hair like satin, and wore a white dress that reached her waist without any accessories. She was like a fairy from heaven, untainted by dust. Her black eyes were cold and her cheeks were white as snow, but her face was cold as ice. She was independent and detached from the world, floating like a fairy. Su Fan lazily lay on the recliner, eating skewers, drinking spirit wine, and watching Sister Zhen's ghost floating in the valley. Except for the chill, everything was perfect. For the next 2 days, Su Fan stayed in the valley. If he had known that there was such a beautiful place in the mountains, he would have come here earlier, which was much more comfortable than staying at home. Su Fan released all the evil ghosts in the evil ghost banner for him to practice ghost control. At night, he would also release a few evil ghosts to guard the surroundings. Every day, apart from barbecuing and drinking, he would practice Yunongguang and Duan Shenju, and then practice sword or magic in the valley. That night, Su Fan sat cross-legged in the tent, practicing Yunongguang. At this time, a fierce ghost who was on guard in the distance suddenly lost contact. Su Fan was stunned. He quickly stood up and slapped a top-grade 5-element spirit armor talisman on his body. Just when he wanted to call back the other 2 fierce ghosts, they lost contact with him. Su Fan quickly put the things in the valley into the storage bag, then turned around and ran out of the valley. The strength of the fierce ghosts is equivalent to that of a mid-stage key training cultivator, especially at night. The strength of the 3 fierce ghosts was lost silently, and the opponent's strength is not weak. Moreover, no one would come to this place during the day, let alone in the middle of the night. The person who came must have some secrets that cannot be told. It is better to leave this place as soon as possible to avoid unnecessary trouble. He had just run a short distance when a figure jumped out of the surrounding woods and blocked his way. The other person was wearing a hooded black robe, and the hood covered most of his face, so he couldn't recognize his face at all. Just as Su Fan was about to take out his magic sword, he saw dozens of figures whizzing past in the air. Su Fan's face turned pale after a spiritual sense scan. These people were actually in the late stage of key training, so what the hell was there to fight? At this time, a figure appeared in the air in the distance. A cold and chilly aura pressed over him, making him unable to breathe. Fuck. Foundation building stage cultivator. Su Fan's head exploded immediately. This was the first time he was so close to the foundation building stage. This time it was over. Not to mention fighting, there was no chance to even run. The foundation building stage cultivator in the air in the distance turned his head and glanced at him. Then his figure slowly faded and disappeared into the dark night, as if he had never existed. Su Fan had already guessed the identity of these people. They must be demon cultivators. The black-robed cultivator on the opposite side walked over and gave Su Fan a cold look. Those evil spirits are yours. Are you an evil cultivator? Su Fan's heart moved, and he nodded quickly. Seeing him nod, the black-robed monk took out a black pill and handed it to him. It just so happens that we are short of manpower. Take this heartbreaking pill. The other party had no intention of negotiating with him. If he didn't eat it, these people would definitely not let him go. Although he knew that the heartbreaking pill was not a good thing, he had no room to refuse. Su Fan made up his mind and took the heartbreaking pill and stuffed it into his mouth. Thanks to the boss of Nightmare for the monthly ticket, thanks to the boss of GUI Yabe for the reward, thanks to Holiday Coffee, Zengayu Tongying, Cheng Zizi, Book Friend 20180711160742977, and all the bosses for their recommendation votes. Lao Bu is deeply grateful. Thank you all for your love and support. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Heartbreaking Goo. The black-robed monk saw that Su Fan had taken the heartbreaking pill and threw him a storage bag. You have been recruited by a true demon sect. Come with me. Damn, you call this recruitment? He scanned the storage bag with his spiritual sense, which contained 100 spirit stones. Well, at least he didn't work for nothing. In fact, Su Fan felt fortunate to be mistaken for an evil cultivator. If he hadn't practiced ghost magic before entering the mountain, he would have been killed by the demon sect. The black-robed monk led Su Fan to a simple camp nearby, where more than 100 people had gathered. Judging from the way these people were dressed, they should be recruited evil cultivators like him. You go in. The other party left after saying that, leaving Su Fan alone here. Just when Su Fan was at a loss, a black-robed monk in the middle stage of key training walked out of the camp. You are new here, come in and register. Su Fan followed him in, gave a fake name, and registered his identity information. Anyway, as long as you have taken the heartbreaking pill, the other party obviously doesn't care what name you use. Remember to come to me every month to get the antidote for the broken heart pill. After hearing what the other party said, he probably guessed what the broken heart pill was. Su Fan came to the camp with a gloomy face, found a place to sit cross-legged, and looked around. The camp was not large, and more than 100 evil cultivators sat together in groups of 3 or 5. The true demon sect is far away in Liangzhou. Why did they come to Shaoyangfang? Not only Shaoyangfang, I'm afraid the entire Chu state has been conquered by the demon sect. Haha, the immortal sect was tricked by the demon sect, and its main forces were concentrated in Qin state, but they didn't expect to be cut off from behind. It is estimated that several demon sects in Liangzhou have mixed in, and the immortal sect cultivators in Qin state are in trouble. What is the broken heart pill we eat? You ate the broken heart goo? You can run if you want, but without the antidote, your internal organs will be devoured by the broken heart goo in a month. Listening to the discussion of the evil cultivators, Su Fan has almost figured out the whole story. The main force of the immortal sect in Yangzhou, as well as the sword cultivators who came to support from Ganzhou and Lanzhou, are all concentrated in Qin to confront the demon sect. As a result, the demon sect did not play by the rules this time. The true demon sect of Liangzhou directly attacked Chu and completely cut off the retreat of the Qin immortal sect. The connection between Qin and Ganzhou, Lanzhou, and even the Central Plains should have been cut off by the demon sect 2 days ago. The Qingxuan sect hurriedly evacuated Shaoyangfang. It should have received news from Qin that the demon sect had begun to attack Qin. Thinking of this, Su Fan couldn't help but worry about Lao Yi. This group of sword madmen, they fight like they don't care about their lives. I'm really afraid that this guy will have another accident. Now he wants to leave Chu, it's too late. And that broken heart pill, his guess was right. These guys from the demon sect are too vicious. They actually use the broken heart goo to control the evil cultivators to work for them. Thinking of this, Su Fan's heart moved. The purple electric current in the thunder Daoseed is the nemesis of all evils. I just don't know if it can destroy the broken heart goo in my body. But now that he is here, he dare not try, fearing that the demon sect has left some tricks. At present, It is safe to mix with this group of evil cultivators at least for the time being, so let's wait for the right opportunity. At this time, there was a roar in the air. In the dark night, a white bone flying boat slowly descended from the sky. Hurry up, get on the flying boat, the black-robed demon cultivator in the camp shouted loudly, urging the evil cultivators to board the bone boat. Su Fan mixed in the crowd and walked onto the white bone flying boat. The bone boat is not big, only a few feet long and more than 10 feet high. It is made of unknown huge animal bones. Each animal bone is as thick as a bowl, and it is engraved with dense and complicated runes, which looks gloomy and weird. Su Fan and his companions were brought to the deck of the flying boat. More than 100 evil cultivators stood together, filling the deck. Buzz! A huge roar sounded, the bone boat shook for a moment, and then soared into the sky. In a flash, the bone boat rushed out of the mountain and flew over the sky of Shaoyangfang City. Su Fan lay on the fence at the edge of the deck and looked down. Shaoyangfang City below was completely in chaos, with flames everywhere, shouts and screams everywhere. The formation of the market has been activated and is being attacked by the demon sect. The spiritual light shield kept trembling, emitting waves of dazzling light, which was getting dimmer and dimmer. Su Fan sighed. Shaoyangfang was finished. I don't know how Lao Su is doing, whether he can escape this catastrophe. At this time, there was a noise on the deck of the flying boat. Look, there are flying boats from the immortal sect coming. Su Fan looked in the direction of the people's fingers, and saw a few lights appearing in the night sky in the distance. In the dark night, the outlines of several huge flying boats slowly emerged. Suddenly, a strong breath rose up. The sky and the earth were dim, and the ghostly air was everywhere. The boundless dark fog spread out, like a mountain wind, majestic and powerful. Countless ghosts surged in the black fog, and the desolate war song echoed throughout the land. Wherever it passed, there was a dead silence. The ancient and mournful war song seemed to be telling the eternal resentment. In the distance, a faint light floated, brighter than the moonlight. Between the floating faint light, bursts of horse neighs were heard. 2 horses raised their hooves and rushed out of the dark night, pulling a huge bronze chariot. There were gusts of cold wind all around, and countless ghosts were everywhere, and the momentum was very huge. A tall figure in armor on the chariot, majestically holding the sharp spear in his hand and pointing it forward. Then he drove the chariot and killed the dense ghosts like a tide. The chariot rumbled and rolled away, covering the sky and the earth, unstoppable. Su Fan, who was standing in the distance and watching, suddenly felt a surge of terrifying pressure, which made him tremble. Ghost General. That's the Ghost General. Hearing the shouts from the crowd, Su Fan couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Is the Ghost General so fierce? Originally, Su Fan looked down on the ghost monks. Aren't they just a bunch of ghosts? But just seeing the Ghost General driving the bronze chariot, he was deeply shocked. Sister Zhen, you have to work hard. At this time, the Ghost General in the distance had led the overwhelming ghosts to surround several flying boats. Countless ghosts, evil spirits and ghost soldiers rushed towards several flying boats fearlessly. The flying boats of the immortal sect also propped up a huge spiritual shield, and dazzling rays of light continued to sweep towards the ghosts rushing in. Clang. A sharp sword inscription sound resounded through the world. The terrifying sword intent filled the entire night sky. A sword light with murderous intent instantly slashed at the bronze chariot. The earth-shaking supreme power was like a fierce torrent. Wherever it passed, countless ghosts were crushed by this majestic force. Bang! A huge black war spear stabbed at the terrifying sword light, and the whole space seemed to be shattered. Thanks to book friend 150,514,093,553,343 for the reward. Thanks to book friend 20220106225710373, The Unfortunate Adventure of the Old Man in the Northwest, SYNOPSIS, and all the big guys for their recommendation votes. Lao Bu is deeply grateful. Thank you all for your love and support. Chapter 43, You Have to Pretend. The foundation-building sword cultivator from the immortal sect was extremely powerful. The Ghost General's dark spear, which was transformed from Yin-Ki, was chopped off by his sword, and the bronze carriage was also shocked and retreated several feet. Taking this opportunity, the sword cultivator controlled the flying sword to slash at countless ghosts. The sword light was crisscrossed and raging. It was like an invisible and intangible mysterious wave, which caused waves of light and light ripples visible to the naked eye among countless ghosts. The sharp and fierce flying sword chopped countless ghosts to pieces. The ghost general was extremely angry and howled wildly at the sky. Endless black mist appeared around him, transformed into dozens of black spears, and stabbed at the sword cultivator in the distance. The sword cultivator waved his hand, and the flying sword came swiftly, sweeping away dozens of dark spears. Although the ghost general was powerful, he was really no match for the sword cultivator. Except for this foundation-building sword cultivator, no one else from the immortal sect's several flying boats came out to participate in the battle. Although the ghost general suppressed the sword cultivator very badly, he also entangled the sword cultivator tightly. At this time, a huge white-boned vulture came out from the dark night. The wingspan of the white-boned vulture is more than 10 feet, and every time the wings flap, there will be a harsh crackling sound. A black-robed monk drove the white-boned vulture straight to a flying boat in the distance. The white-boned vulture looks clumsy, but it is very fast, whizzing past the flying boat. With a fierce sweep of the bone wings, the hideous bone spurs on the wingtip cut the spiritual light shield of the flying boat. The black-robed monk swung his arm fiercely, and countless bone spurs were like a violent storm, overwhelming the flying boat in the distance. Without the protection of the spiritual shield, countless bone spurs fell down, and the flying boat of dozens of feet was also smashed into pieces and fell headfirst from the air. Two figures jumped out of the flying boat next to them and besieged the white-boned Taoist demon cultivator. At this time, 4 more foundation-building demon cultivators from other directions joined the battle and fought with the foundation-building cultivators of the immortal sect. Several foundation-building cultivators fought fiercely. Although the sword cultivators were strong and the immortal sect cultivators were also very tenacious, several flying boats were shot down one after another due to the disparity in strength. Except for the sword cultivator who escaped at the last moment, the 2 foundation-building cultivators of the immortal sect and the cultivators on several flying boats were all killed by the demon cultivators. Su Fan stood on the bone boat and witnessed the whole process of the battle. In Xiaoyangfang alone, the demon sect sent out 6 foundation-building cultivators. It seems that the true demon sect has already come out in full force. Moreover, in the immortal sect, except for the sword cultivators, the combat effectiveness of others is worrying. Facing the fierce demon cultivators, all kinds of treacherous methods that emerge one after another, the immortal sect cultivators are passive everywhere. Boom. While Su Fan was thinking about it, the bone boat had already landed near Xiaoyangfang City. The true demon sect not only captured Shaoyuan Market, but also the mountain gate of Shaoyuan sect. The Shaoyuan sect who was in charge of the market died in the battle to build the foundation, and most of the remaining disciples in the sect were also killed or captured. As soon as he entered Shaoyuan Market, Su Fan was stunned by the scene in front of him. There were corpses everywhere inside and outside the market, and there were ruins everywhere, as if the end of the world had come. Su Fan knew in his heart that most of these people who died came from the internecine killing of casual cultivators. No matter where, once the order is lost, it will become chaotic. Today's Shaoyuan Market is no longer what it used to be. In the eyes of casual cultivators, this is a gold mountain and silver sea. The demon sect broke through the market, and many casual cultivators followed suit to rob. Looking at the once prosperous Shaoyuan Market, which has turned into ruin, Su Fan sighed in his heart. He has been here since he traveled through time and has stayed here for more than a year. He still has feelings for Shaoyuan Market. The casual cultivators who survived in the market are now all staying at home and silently licking their wounds. Although the demon sect was brutal, they treated the scattered cultivators near the market similarly to the immortal sect. In the first few days, the demon sect recruited a large number of scattered cultivators from the market to clean up the environment inside and outside the market, and then ignored them. Not only that, they will recruit scattered cultivators to participate in the war against the immortal sect in the future. Of course, because the evil cultivators were all infected with a heartbreaking goo, the true demon sect is more confident in them at present. The true demon sect is actively preparing for war, so the task of patrolling the shanty towns around the market was handed over to the evil cultivators. Su Fan and several evil cultivators were assigned to a shanty town near the market to maintain order there. The corpses scattered all over the ground and the living souls floating everywhere were all plundered by the demon sect's zombie and ghost cultivators. More than 100 recruited evil cultivators also got a lot of benefits. Su Fan picked up a few corpses of scattered cultivators and collected more than a dozen ghosts with the evil ghost banner. There was no way, now that he was an evil cultivator, he had to pretend. For the next 2 days, Su Fan was assigned to the night shift and patrolled the market every night. While he was patrolling, he took the opportunity to send Sister Zhen out and went to his yard to take a look. Damn, the house had been burned down. Maybe some bastard went to his house and found that there was not a hair left, so he burned the house in a rage. Although he had only lived in the small courtyard for a few months, he lived there comfortably, but he didn't expect it to be gone. Old Su's house was well preserved, but it was also empty, and it was estimated that it was in danger. This group of evil cultivators was not so easy to deal with, and they often went door to door to plunder the scattered cultivators. Su Fan certainly would not be a maverick. In a few days, he was allocated a lot of cultivation resources and hundreds of spirit stones. In the past few days, there have been cultivators from the True Demon sect who have come to Shaoyangfang on bone boats. It is said that a giant cultivator has also come and is sitting at the gate of the Shaoyang sect. The huge bone boats of the demon sect also kept flying over the market, and everywhere presented an atmosphere before the coming of a war. With the fall of Chu, even the immortal sects in the central plains are probably restless. The immortal sects in Ganzhou and Lanzhou will certainly not let the demon sect occupy Chu. The immortal sect will definitely organize forces to retake Chu in the near future and open up connections with Qin. In the future, Chu will definitely be the main battlefield for the disputes between immortals and demons. Su Fan does not want to be cannon fodder for the demon sect, and he will not know how he died when the time comes. So these days, he began to think about how to escape from Shaoyang market. The first is the broken heart goo. I don't know if the purple current of the thunder seed in my body can solve this hidden danger. These days, he wants to find an opportunity to try it outside the market. If it weren't for the broken heart goo in his body, Su Fan would have run away long ago. The second is how to leave. Without a flying magic weapon, he can't leave on his own 2 legs. Then there's the route to leave. The first choice is of course the direction of Ganzhou. But at present, it seems that only when the immortal sect retakes Chu can there be a chance to take a flying boat to Ganzhou. So Su Fan decided to find a suitable opportunity to escape into Shaoyang Mountain first. Find a safe place deep in the mountains and stay there for a few months. When the immortal sect recovers the state of Chu, he will come out of the mountains. In the next few days, Su Fan used his identity as an evil cultivator to inquire around in the market. After some observation and inquiries, he made several plans to escape in case of emergency. At this time, a huge bone boat had just entered the territory of the state of Chu. Gu Qinghuan closed her eyes and sat cross-legged in the cabin. The thick black air kept surrounding her. An elderly monk with a thin face pushed open the cabin door and walked in. Gu Qinghuan opened her eyes and saw the old man and quickly stood up to salute. Master, the old man smiled and waved at her. We have just entered the state of Chu. In 2 hours, we will be in Shaoyangfang. After hearing the master's words, Gu Qinghuan breathed a sigh of relief, but there was a trace of uneasiness on her face. Master, the old man chuckled and said, the sect master is right, you are just too smooth. If you want to achieve perfection in your Tao, it's not a bad thing to stumble occasionally. Gu Qinghuan didn't say anything, but forced a smile and turned to look out the window. Little thief, I'm here. Chapter 44. Plans cannot keep pace with changes. After Shaoyangfang was breached, the market stagnated for a time. Many independent cultivators lost their livelihoods, but they still had to eat, so some people set up stalls at their doorsteps. Slowly, some of the more spacious places in the shanty towns naturally formed small markets. For example, elixirs for cultivation were previously sold only in the major stores in the market. As for the spiritual rice for food, it was monopolized by the Qingxuan sect, and no matter how big the store was, it could not sell it. Now that the market is gone, these things have become the most in-demand commodities. The evil cultivators in charge of public security in the shanty towns bribed the disciples of the true demon sect, got some elixirs and spiritual rice from the sect, and then sold them to independent cultivators at a high price. In just a few days, a chain of interests was formed. Su Fan and several evil cultivators who were on night duty also hooked up with an outer disciple of the true demon sect. The goods were distributed to several independent cultivators in the area, and then distributed to the small markets in the shanty towns for sale. The disciple of the true demon sect was called Wang Zhi, and he had the 6th level of key training. This guy was a bit lustful, so Su Fan introduced him to several pretty female cultivators in the shanty towns. So, Su Fan got acquainted with him. As one of the forward bases of the true demon sect in Chu, especially during the war preparation period, countless resources would be transported from Liangzhou every day. Even if a little bit of it leaked out, it would be a very considerable amount. Although Wang Zihi's qualifications were average, his family background was not low. He belonged to an old-fashioned family in the true demon sect. Through the operation of his elders, he got a good job here. He didn't have to work hard, but he could get spiritual stones. And every night this guy would be in the shantytown, taking turns to be the bridegroom every night. After a few days of hard work, Su Fan figured out his pattern of action. In order to leave here as soon as possible, he made several plans, and Wang Zihi was the most important part of them. In the early morning of this day, Su Fan and an evil cultivator were patrolling the shantytown. It was called patrolling, but in fact there was nothing to do. They were a group of 4 people, divided into 2 teams and strolled around the shantytown. Zio Fan, I have something to do later, so I'll go for a while. After listening to the words of the evil cultivator next to him, Su Fan smiled and nodded. The young widow is so nice. The other party laughed and said, brother, I have an idea. Su Fan hurriedly shook his head. From what this guy said, he wanted to take him to a 2-on-1 fight. What kind of hobby is this? Brother Liu, go ahead. I'll keep an eye on this. Su Fan ignored him, and this guy got excited. It's okay. If you have an idea, just say it. That young widow, tisk. Su Fan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I don't have any ideas. How broad-minded this guy must be to share his woman with others. After this guy left, Su Fan continued to patrol the shantytown. At this time, the sky was already light, and the light blue sky was inlaid with a few broken stars. The earth was hazy, as if covered with a silver gray veil. Su Fan came to an alley, looked around, and then jumped into an empty yard. After Xiaoyangfang was breached, many houses in the shantytown were vacant. This yard had a basement, which he found 2 days ago. Su Fan came to the basement and sat cross-legged. He took a deep breath, and then slowly drew out the purple current of the thunder seed with his mind. The purple current of the thunder seed was extremely violent. It was also a very laborious task to let the current flow slowly in the body. Su Fan controlled the current and slowly wrapped the broken heart goo. His eyes focused, and the purple current roared in his body. It was unknown how long it took before he stopped. With a sweep of his mind, he found that a broken heart goo had disappeared. Su Fan breathed a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat from his forehead. It would be a lie to say that he was not nervous. If he failed, he would be gone. It was like risking his life. The first step of the plan was to solve the broken heart goo, which had been perfectly achieved. If the plan for tomorrow night went smoothly, he could leave here. No, he should check it carefully again to avoid any hidden dangers. Su Fan focused his eyes again, and activated his mind to slowly scan his body over and over again, not missing a single place. When his mind swept over his arm, he suddenly found that the ghost face tattoo was a little strange. If you don't observe carefully, you can't find it at all. Fuck. No way, is that woman here? Su Fan quickly pinched his fingers, muttered to himself, and activated the secret technique Void Spirit method. He was still a little worried, so he took out a top-grade invisibility talisman and slapped it on himself, and then he was relieved. Su Fan lamented in his heart, why the plan is always not as fast as the change. Now it seems that several plans have been made in vain. After just a few seconds of consideration, Su Fan gritted his teeth, stood up and left the yard. Hundreds of miles away in the air, Gu Qinghuan stood on the deck of the bone boat, looking at the direction of Shaoyuan Market, and smiled coldly. Little thief, see where you run this time. Suddenly, she frowned, and the breath of the little thief became fainter. Then, the breath disappeared completely. Quite smart, he. Let's see how long you can hide. Su Fan jumped out of the yard, he didn't care so much, and used the wind walk technique to run wildly in the alley. He came to the yard and jumped in silently. He didn't slow down at all, and directly smashed the door and rushed into the house. Wang Zihi was sleeping soundly with his sister in his arms, and was awakened by the sound of breaking the door. He yelled subconsciously, and saw a figure coming to the bed. He was naked and reached out to take the storage bag at the head of the bed. Buzz! He felt a black in front of his eyes, as if his head was hit hard by a sledgehammer, and then he knew nothing. The girl next to him grabbed the quilt to cover her body. When she saw Wang Zihi fall, she screamed. A flying needle pierced her eye socket and she fell weakly on the bed. Su Fan took out the evil ghost banner, collected the soul of the female cultivator, and then put her body into the storage bag. He picked up Wang Zhi again, came to the outside of the yard, and threw him into the water tank. Wang Zhi was shocked by the cold water and finally came back to life. Su Fan's eyes flashed with lightning, and the other party was instantly like a fascinated person, answering whatever he asked. After asking for a while, Su Fan stretched out his hand and broke the other party's neck. He took Wang Zhi's soul and performed the void spirit method. Then the bones of his body made a crisp crackling sound, and his body became much shorter. The muscles on his face twisted, and his face became somewhat similar to Wang Zhi. Of course, acquaintances can still tell. Su Fan put on the other party's Taoist robe again, put his body into the storage bag, turned around and left the house, and jumped out of the small courtyard. At this time, the sky was already pale, and the morning glow coated the earth with a layer of light gold. Su Fan wore a hood, covering most of his face, and hurriedly walked towards the direction of the market. He did not enter the market, but came to an open space outside the market, which was the docking point of the true demon sex bone boat. Just now, he got a surprising news from Wang Zhi. In the next few days, Wang Zhi will take the bone boat back to Liang's house to do something for his family. Su Fan, who was originally planning to escape into the mountains, came here without a second thought, ready to borrow Wang Zhi's identity to leave Shaoyangfang. Su Fan came to the bone boat docking point, where several disciples of the true demon sect were guarding. He walked over, took out Wang Zhi's ID card and the token of riding the bone boat, and walked in openly. Many people were already waiting here, and Su Fan found a crowded place and sat cross-legged on the ground. Su Fan didn't know where the next bone boat would go. But he didn't care about those things, he just wanted to leave this hellhole as soon as possible. After waiting for a long time, a huge white bone flying boat appeared in the sky in the distance. Gu Qinghuan stood on the deck, with his hands behind his back, looking coldly at the Shaoyangfang market not far away. It's a little late today because Lao Bu didn't set the scheduled release last night, please forgive me. Thanks to the bad adventure of an old man in the northwest, Zhengayu Tongying, Suo Yisi, Holiday Coffee, I am your sister, book friend 20200502130734027, and all the big guys for their recommendation votes. Lao Bu is deeply grateful. Thank you all for your love and support. Chapter 45 Why are you reluctant? The huge flying bone boat finally flew over the sky of Shaoyang Market. The dozens of feet long bone boat slowly descended, and the huge shadow of the flying bone boat gradually enveloped Su Fan and others. The overwhelming sense of oppression made Su Fan tremble with fear. Boom! The bone boat landed on the ground, and several hatches opened at the same time, and countless black-robed demon monks filed out. At this time, a demon cultivator next to Su Fan screamed, "Brother, that senior sister is so beautiful." Not only Su Fan, but also other demon cultivators around him looked in the direction of his finger. A female cultivator just walked out of the cabin. She was wearing a black robe, and her skirt fluttered gently in the morning breeze. Like ripples on the quiet lake, it exuded a cool tranquility. The breathtakingly beautiful face was flawless and brilliant. Her skin was as white as snow, her black hair was like a waterfall, and her figure was graceful. It was as if she was an immortal who had walked out of the fairyland and drifted down to the mortal world. Pure as ice, beautiful as a dream. Hiss, there was a gasp around Su Fan, and many demon cultivators were all like possessed, their eyes fixed on her. Su Fan did not look at such a beautiful female cultivator, but quickly buried his head deeply. Damn, the witch really came. He was just guessing at first, but now it is finally confirmed. Since he discovered the strangeness of the ghost face tattoo on his right arm in the early morning, it has been half an hour. This means that the witch consensus presents within a radius of at least 100 miles. Thinking of this, Su Fan's face turned pale. He sat there nervously, and the cold sweat on his back had penetrated his Taoist robe. Don't panic, do what you need to do. Don't show your true colors, or you will die if you are discovered. Thinking of this, Su Fan raised his head and pretended to be like everyone else, looking at Gu Qinghuan with obsessed eyes. Gu Qinghuan has long been accustomed to such an atmosphere. He walked down the gangway as if no one was around, as if he didn't see the greedy and obsessed eyes of those demon cultivators. Cough. At this time, Someone behind Gu Qinghuan coughed lightly. Everyone felt a buzz in their heads and instantly regained clarity. Jinden Sr., with a cry of surprise, the people around were all surprised and bowed their heads respectfully. It was not until Gu Qinghuan and the Jinden real person walked far away that many demon cultivators dared to look up. Oh my god, I was scared to death. I almost offended a Jinden Sr. just now. That senior sister is so beautiful. Senior brother, I seem to be in love. Stupid, wake up, that's what you dare to think. Senior sister is so beautiful. Think about it. Many demon cultivators around Su Fan talked excitedly. Only he remained silent and sneered in his heart. What a bunch of idiots. Beauty is your uncle. That is a witch who kills without blinking an eye. The demon cultivators on the bone boat finally came down. Su Fan stood up from the ground, mixed in with many demon cultivators, and quietly walked into the bone boat. With a token of riding the bone boat, he actually got into a separate cabin. The cabin was not big, only 10 feet square, with only a bed and a cabinet, not even a chair. There was a small window in the cabin, at least better than the confinement room. Either stay here for a few days, or you will be suffocated to death. Although the time limit of the invisibility and concealment talisman has not yet expired, Su Fan is still a little worried and slaps it on himself. At this time, he can only leave it to fate. Behind the witch just now, there is an old demon in the Golden Core realm. The demon sect has nothing else, but it is not short of all kinds of strange and bizarre means. There is nothing they can't do, only what you can't think of. Now Su Fan is just praying to God, praying that the bone boat will fly quickly. Don't waste any more time. Buzz! Finally, the huge bone boat vibrated. The white bone flying boat began to slowly leave the ground and sailed away from Shaoyangfang City. Su Fan leaned against the window, watching the increasingly smaller Shaoyangfang market, and an inexplicable sadness rose in his heart. He had stayed in Shaoyangfang for more than a year, and there were many things worth remembering. This time he left, maybe he would never come back in this life. At this time, Gu Qinghuan was standing at the door of the market with his hands behind his back, looking coldly at the dilapidated shanty towns in the distance. Little thief, as long as you are still here, I don't believe I can't find you. The old man standing behind him looked at her softly. Who would have thought that a low-level casual cultivator would actually make this girl's Tao heart have a flaw? The extremely yin body of the heavenly spirit root, the great perfection of key training at the age of 20. It is as difficult as ascending to heaven for other cultivators to build a foundation. But for a genius, it is not a big deal. If she hadn't deliberately suppressed it, she might have built a foundation without paying attention. The master of the sect was right. Her progress in cultivation was too fast, and her past experiences were also smooth sailing. Her state of mind was obviously not accumulated enough. Now encountering a hurdle is really not a bad thing for her. It's nothing to build a foundation later, but if her Tao heart is not clear, it will definitely have a lot of impact on her future practice. The future of the Ghost King sect depends on this girl. Gu Qinghuan took a deep breath. Until today, she still clearly remembered the face of that little thief. She wanted to pull out his muscles and soul and make him never reincarnate. She knew in her heart that the little thief must have used secret techniques or magic tools to temporarily cover up his breath. But she was not in a hurry. No matter how good the secret techniques or magic tools are, they are not omnipotent. There will always be loopholes to catch. As long as this little thief is still in the market, he will be exposed sooner or later. Even if she can sense a trace of breath, she can easily catch this little thief. Gu Qinghuan thought well, but she didn't know that Su Fan had already boarded the bone boat and left Shaoyangfang. The bone boat flew for more than a month, and Su Fan's heart was finally put back in his stomach. He was so scared all the way that he couldn't even sleep well. Occasionally listening to other demon cultivators chatting these days, he learned where this bone boat was flying to, and the destination turned out to be the distant Liangzhou. Su Fan is now in a state of distress, as he is getting farther and farther away from Ganzhou. He also doesn't know if he can still make it to Yukingman after breaking through to the late stage of key training. It's useless to think so much now. According to the current situation, whether he can return to Yangzhou in the future is a question. But what can Su Fan do? The witch has come to kill him. If he doesn't run away, will he be caught? Will he let her extract his soul and refine his spirit and make him live a life worse than death? Su Fan doesn't understand, and he didn't do anything to her. What a big grudge, is it that serious? If he really offended her, he would admit it. Even if he touched her, it would be worth dying. But he didn't even touch a hair. Why did he keep pestering her? You are a proud daughter of the demon sect. Why are you competing with him, a low-level small cultivator? Forget it, I can't mess with women anymore in the future. It's too damn vengeful. Chapter 46, 100 Poisons and Corrupted Life Miasma. Thinking of the current situation, Su Fan's head ached with worry. He sighed and took it one step at a time. Su Fan took Wang Zhi's storage bag from his waist. He had been so scared these days that he hadn't opened it to take a look. After all, he was a descendant of a family from the demon sect. He was only at the 6th level of key training, but he actually had a 10-square storage bag. Su Fan took out all the things in the storage bag. Although there were not many things in the storage bag, Su Fan was still shocked. There were thousands of low-grade spirit stones alone, not to mention more than 100 medium-grade spirit stones. The ancients were not deceiving me. In addition to spirit stones, there were dozens of bottles of elixirs for key training and other auxiliary elixirs. He didn't recognize many of the elixirs, because they were not what he needed anyway. There were nearly 100 talismans, most of which were medium and high-grade protective talismans from the demon sect. This buddy is good, and he is a fellow traveler. There are 4 magic weapons in total: the top-grade attack magic weapon Soul-Breaking Cone, the mid-grade auxiliary magic weapon Bewitching Heart Bell, and the mid-grade protective magic weapon Blood Pattern Bone Shield. During this period, he had to stay in the territory of the demon sect, and these magic weapons were just right for him. Especially the Blood Pattern Bone Shield, which is a mid-grade protective magic weapon. It is hard to find in the market, and you can't buy it even if you have spirit stones. The last magic weapon is a black boat, named Yinfeng Boat. It is about 1 foot long, with a black boat body and a slot below for inlaying spirit stones. It feels very rough, and no one knows what material it is made of. This is the magic weapon Su Fan wants most. Seeing Wang Zhi use it several times in the market, he wants to take this magic weapon for himself. If he doesn't have a flying magic weapon to travel, he may be captured by the demon sect before he enters Shaoyuan Mountain. Su Fan is very satisfied with this Yinfeng boat because it is very fast. The only disadvantage is that it costs spirit stones. According to Wang Zhi, a low-grade spirit stone can't fly far, and he usually uses medium-grade spirit stones. Another wasteful thing. There is also a pile of books. Su Fan opened a few and flipped through them, and he almost felt sick to death. He never knew Wang Zhi's background, but after reading these books, he realized that this guy was actually following the path of the Hehuan Dao. Most of these books are about the dual cultivation techniques of the Hehuan Dao, as well as various secret techniques and recipes for aphrodisiacs. It is estimated that many of those elixirs are tiger and wolf medicines for aphrodisiacs. No wonder he likes to change brides every night. Although in the world of cultivation, it is not shameful to practice the Hehuan Dao. After all, it is an orthodox Taoist tradition passed down from ancient times. But he, who grew up in the atmosphere of a Confucian society, could never accept it. In addition, there are 2 exquisitely designed boxes, one large and one small. Su Fan opened the big box with some anticipation, and saw the contents, which almost made him sick to death. They are all women's underwear, and they are all used. Look at this guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes. How could he have such a weird hobby? He is simply a collector. It's a pity for this exquisite box. Why not put something else in it? After looking at the big box, Su Fan had no expectations for the small box. He picked up the small box and took a look. Could it be that there were also some disgusting things in it? When he opened the box, Su Fan's eyes were wide open. He felt a hot current rushing from his spine to the back of his head in an instant, and the blood in his body was hot. What the hell? Then he saw a jade talisman in the box. It was the 2nd level protective jade talisman that Su Fan dreamed of getting. This jade talisman is called 100 Poisons Corrupt Light Miasma. Once activated, it can stimulate a miasma to protect the body. Not only can it protect the body, but it can also manipulate poison barriers to hurt the enemy, or corrode the opponent's or a shield and magic weapon. Haha, Su Fan laughed excitedly. He finally had a real trump card. With a 2nd level J talisman, it will not be a problem for him to encounter the late stage of key training in the future. In addition to these, the rest are some miscellaneous things. From the things in Wang Zhi's storage bag, it can be seen that this guy must be a direct descendant of the family, otherwise he would not have been able to get such a lucrative job. Not to mention the second-level J talisman 100 poisons and corruption light miasma, which is probably also left to him by the direct elders of the family. Who would have thought that this guy never wore it on his body at all? Maybe he has never experienced any crisis. Because of his poor qualifications, he simply broke the jar and broke it. This guy practiced the Hellhound Deo, and he probably never thought about achieving any great way, just for pleasure. Although the process of escaping from Shaoyang Market this time was quite thrilling, the gains were also very great. A second-level J talisman alone is enough to offset all the risks. The bone boat traveled for more than a month and finally arrived at Hixuan City in the east of Liangzhou. With Hixuan City as the center, the area of nearly 10,000 miles is the sphere of influence of the True Demon sect. The gate of the True Demon sect is not far away in the Hixuan Mountains, and Hixuan City is located at the foot of the mountain. The bone boat docking point is located on the outskirts of Hixuan City. Dozens of bone flying boats have been docked here, and a large number of cultivators have gathered here waiting to board the boat. Su Fan got off the bone boat and looked back. He sighed. It was easy to get off, but it was difficult to get on again. Su Fan only wanted to use this token of riding the flying boat in his hand once. After entering Hixuan City, Su Fan was ready to destroy all the things belonging to Wang Zhi. Moreover, in the disputes between immortals and demons in the western wilderness, except for the special period during the war, there were no bone boats flying from Liangzhou to Yangzhou. Su Fan didn't know how to return to Yangzhou in the future. He walked towards Hixuan City along a road. There were many people on the road, and it was extremely lively. There were also a large number of cultivators driving magic weapons in the air, constantly whizzing past. The sky was full of flying lights, and various types of flying boats were flying across the sky. Su Fan's eyes were not enough to see, although he had seen prosperous big cities. But no matter how big and prosperous the city was in his previous life, there were not so many people flying in the sky. Su Fan showed his identity J talisman at the city gate and entered the city smoothly. As soon as he entered the city, the rich spiritual energy that hid him made Su Fan shudder. The concentration of spiritual energy here is at least several times richer than that of Shaoyang Market. He found an inn, destroyed all the clothes and identity J talismans of the True Demon sect, and destroyed Wang Zhi's soul and body. He changed into a black Taoist robe, changed his body shape and appearance, changed his soul to perform the virtual spirit method, and then left the inn. There are shops on both sides of the streets in the city, and the streets are crowded with people, which is very prosperous. Su Fan originally thought that the area controlled by the demon sect was similar to the immortal sect, but he walked around the city and found that the shops in Hixuan City can buy the resources of the immortal sect. Not only that, you can also see some casual cultivators practicing the immortal sect skills in the city. This is absolutely unimaginable in the immortal sect control area. Not to mention the demon cultivators, even the magic tools of the demon sect cannot be seen in the light. Once they are discovered by the immortal sect, it will be a big trouble. It seems that the demon sect control area is still relatively tolerant of casual cultivators. Although Black Profound City is nice, Su Fan didn't want to stay here. After all, he had just killed a disciple of the demon sect, and he didn't dare to stay in the sphere of influence of the True Demon sect. It won't be long before Wang Zhi's identity will be exposed. Su Fan found a shop and sold all the useless things in his hands. He found a spiritual rice shop in the city and bought thousands of kilograms of spiritual rice in one go. He also found a larger pill shop on the street and bought 30 bottles of Guillain pills and some auxiliary pills. He also supplemented some healing medicines and auxiliary talismans, and bought a map of Liangzhou, and then left Black Profound City. Not long after leaving Black Profound City, Su Fan took out the Yinfeng boat in an unmanned place, embedded a medium-grade spiritual stone in the card slot, and drove the flying boat away. Chapter 47 You'll die if you go down. Key State, Heian County, Luqua County. Luqua County is the largest of the 9 counties in Heian County, with 100,000 households in the city, and is the most prosperous place in Heian County. Because the waterways are extremely developed, the merchant ships heading south from the north and north from the southern counties often anchor at the dock outside Luqua County. Su Fan was sitting in a carriage, dozing off as the car rocked. "Old Su, we're here at Luqua County." Hearing the shout, Su Fan shuddered and looked around blankly. He saw a middle-aged strong man waving at him, and then he reacted. Su Fan picked up the sword beside him, supported himself with his hands and jumped off the carriage, and came to the side of the middle-aged strong man. The other party patted his shoulder and laughed. "I'll take you to the city for dinner later. The river food and Wangjiang Tower is a must." Su Fan laughed and declined. "I won't go, that won't work. Let's have a good drink today, and then find a tower to relieve your fatigue. I'll personally send you to the boat tomorrow morning." Su Fan couldn't get away from him, so he had to be pulled into the city by the strong man. After leaving Hexuan City, Su Fan drove the Yinfeng boat all the way east, flying for more than 1,000 miles. He didn't stop until he saw the mortal town. Su Fan pretended to be a man of the world and lived in the mortal town for a few days. Originally, Su Fan's idea was to find a place in the secular world and stay there comfortably for a few years. But since he moved into the mortal town, he gave up this idea. The mortal world is very prosperous and lively, much more exciting than the place where monks gather. But for monks, it is really not suitable for long-term residence. First of all, the spiritual energy is very thin. Even if Su Fan uses a small gathering spirit formation to practice, after a few days, his progress is almost zero. The spiritual energy in the mortal towns, not to mention Hexuan City, is several times richer than here in the shanty towns outside Shaoyuan Market. Fortunately, he still has yin pills in his hand. Taking one pill every day can improve it a little bit. The cost effectiveness is really low, but it's better than nothing. In addition, the secular society is full of all kinds of turbid air, and mortals don't feel it at all. But the five senses of the cultivators are extremely sharp, and they can feel it clearly. If it's in the wilderness, it's okay, but once you enter the city, it's really unbearable for a long time. No wonder those poor casual cultivators in Shaoyuan Market would rather live in the shabby shantytowns than return to the mortal world. Although there are cultivators in the mortal world, they are all older casual cultivators. Either there is no hope of breaking through, or the deadline is approaching. In this world of cultivation, people with spiritual roots can be said to be 1 in 10,000. Even if they have spiritual roots, more than 80% of them are mixed spiritual roots. The probability of the offspring of cultivators having spiritual roots is much higher than that of mortals. Therefore, these cultivators in the mortal world will marry wives and concubines and have a lot of children. They hope to leave 1 or 2 offspring with spiritual roots before they die. During the few days that Su Fan stayed in the town, he studied the map of Liangzhou carefully every day. The most urgent task is to get out of the control area of the true demon sect as soon as possible. Continue to head east, anyway, the closer to Yangzhou, the better. Wang Zihi's disappearance will definitely attract the attention of their family. As long as they check in Shaoyuan Market, they will definitely find him here. To be on the safe side, before leaving the true demon sect's control area, Su Fan decided to hide in the mortal world. He also had to use the virtual spirit method and hidden spirit technique to completely cover up his breath. Even if the true demon sect sent people to hunt him down, it would be almost impossible to find him in the vast sea of people in the secular society. There happened to be a caravan recruiting guards in the town, so Su Fan applied and became a guard of the caravan. In the next few months, he followed the caravan all the way to Lugua County and Qi. According to the map of Liangzhou, if you take a boat in Lugua County and sail along the Qingkang River for a few hundred miles, you will reach the territory of Zhao. Once you reach Zhao, you will be out of the influence of the true demon sect. Su Fan's destination is Kangjiu City, thousands of miles away, which belongs to the influence of the Yinluo sect of the demon sect. He wants to settle down in Kangjiu City temporarily, wait for the situation in Yangzhou to stabilize, and then find a way to return to Yangzhou. Su Fan was pulled by a strong man and walked towards Lugua County not far away. The strong man's name is Hu Guanghe, also a guard of the caravan, and a native of Lugua County. He is generous and righteous, and he gets along well with Su Fan. The two have been getting along well in the past few months. Su Fan walked into Lugua County. The streets are quite wide, with various shops such as wine shops and inns on both sides, and people coming in and out, a prosperous scene. The streets were crowded with people, and there were also various small stalls on both sides of the road with large blue cloth umbrellas, bustling and very lively. The two came to Wangjiang Tower and asked for a private room by the window. Hu Guanghe ordered a full table of dishes. The two drank and chatted while enjoying the beautiful scenery of Qingkang River. "Lao Su, you will leave tomorrow, this cup is for you." Su Fan quickly raised his glass and clinked it with Lao Hu. "Brother, thank you for your care along the way." Lao Hu raised his head and drank the wine, then wiped his mouth. Brother, if you have the opportunity to come to Key again in the future, you must come to see me. Su Fan smiled and nodded. Just as he was about to speak, he heard a heart-wrenching wail from the street outside. The two looked at each other, and quickly got up and walked out of the private room. The windows on the second floor facing the street were already surrounded by people, all diners who came here to eat. Hu Guanghe and Su Fan were both tall and strong, and they squeezed in a few seconds. They looked down and saw pedestrians crying and running away. The stalls on both sides of the street were knocked over. Look at that man, a shop assistant suddenly shouted and pointed to the street corner. Everyone looked in the direction of his finger and saw a man running towards them. Strictly speaking, this was no longer a man. This was a monster that looked like a human and a beast. It was more than 2 meters tall and its body was scarlet, as if it had been skinned alive. The monster was on all fours, with its back arched and a long tail behind its buttocks. It looked like a beast ready to attack. It had a pair of dark green and cold eyes, and a strange smile solidified at the corner of its mouth, revealing its sharp teeth. Ow! The monster howled wildly to the sky, making a creepy roar. It rushed forward and knocked several passers-by who did not have time to escape to the ground in an instant. After a crazy biting, several passers-by were torn to pieces in a few bites. The monster jumped violently, and in a flash it had jumped dozens of meters away, rushing into the crowd ferociously, biting wildly and wantonly. From time to time, people were torn to pieces by it, leaving corpses and debris all over the ground. Hu Guanghe was furious at the time, and he raised his foot to jump off the building, wanting to fight the monster on the street. But before he jumped, Su Fan stretched out his hand and pulled him back. Su Fan held Hu Guanghe tightly and shook his head at him. Old Hu, you're going to die if you go down. Wait until the government officials come. Old Hu's eyes suddenly turned red, and he struggled hard to get out of Su Fan's control, but he couldn't break free after a long time. Lao Su, those people below are all my fellow villagers. Please let me go. Thanks to book friends 150,514,093,553,343 and 2.20 for the rewards, and thanks to Xingaiyu Tongying, 2.20, Soyas, Holiday Coffee, and the 3 generations of online literature for their recommendations. Lao Bu is deeply grateful. Thank you all for your love and support. Chapter 48 Strange Black Smoke. No matter what Lao Hu said, Su Fan still didn't let go. Although he didn't know what the monster on the street was, it was not something that a martial arts master in the secular world could deal with. He used his spiritual sense to scan it. It didn't look like a monster, nor did it have the breath of ghosts, evil spirits, or zombies. At this time, there was a commotion outside. The two returned to the window and saw several government constables with a group of strong men rushing over. Shoot, the leading constable shouted. Several strong men with crossbows behind him shot a round of crossbow arrows at the monster. The monster that was gnawing on the corpse had an extremely strong body, and the crossbow arrows shot at it were bounced off one after another. The monster slowly turned its head, and the chewing sound and blood spurting out of its mouth were creepy. It turned around suddenly and jumped up. Demon. It's a demon, run! Several constables and a group of strong men threw away their crossbows and wailed and fled in all directions. The leading constable roared, drew his sword and rushed forward, but before he could chop, he was slapped away by the monster. He rushed over and threw 2 strong men who didn't have time to run away to the ground, biting them madly. After a while, the 2 strong men were torn into several pieces, and the whole street was stained with blood. Oldie, Hu Guanghe took advantage of Su Fan's unpreparedness and jumped down the building, running to the constable's side. Su Fan turned around and ran into a private room by the window, flipped over and jumped up the building, and appeared on the roof of the building next to him several times. He looked downstairs, sacrificed the invisible needle, and pointed his right hand downwards. Whoosh! The flying needle rushed away and instantly pierced through the monster's head. Ouch! The monster howled miserably, raised its head suddenly, stared at Su Fan with resentment, and jumped to the roof. Su Fan was stunned at the time. He was pierced through the head by the invisible needle but didn't die. What on earth was this? He quickly retreated, took out the magic sword from his storage bag, and stared at the monster rushing towards him. At this time, the magic sword in Su Fan's hand was shining with a faint light and flickered a few times. Unfortunately, his attention was focused on the monster and he did not notice the change of the magic sword. The angry monster roared and rushed up. When he was about to hit Su Fan, He suddenly disappeared from the spot and appeared beside the monster. Whirlwind slash, with his right foot as the axis, he swung the sword in a full circle. With a violent momentum, the fallen leaves on the roof were rolled up and spun with the sword. The sharp sword seemed to cut through the void, making a sharp and piercing sonic boom, and fiercely slashed the monster's neck. Puff! The monster's hideous head instantly soared into the sky. The body that lost control still rushed out a few steps, fell down the building, and fell into the alley below. Su Fan was stunned. He had been prepared for a tough fight, but he didn't expect it to be so easy. It was too weak. Su Fan walked over and picked up the monster's head. He found that there was no blood on the cut of the neck. Moreover, the wound was already rotten, and the stench of corpses was overwhelming. It seemed that it had been dead for a few days. Su Fan jumped down the stairs, covered his nose, and squatted beside the monster's body to examine it carefully. Suddenly, a puff of black smoke came out of the monster's body and instantly penetrated into Su Fan's body. Su Fan, who was not prepared at all, had his Tao seeds exploded in his body, and countless hot purple electric currents whistled out. Su Fan only heard a shrill and hoarse howl in his ears, and the strange black smoke rushed out of the body and was about to disappear. How could Su Fan let it go? The purple electric current wrapped the big sword and swept it fiercely, instantly slashing the black smoke. The black smoke scattered everywhere, and although it condensed again, it was already extremely dim. Su Fan rushed over and slashed wildly with his sword until the black smoke completely dissipated and disappeared. He put away his magic sword. What the hell is this thing? It's too evil. If it weren't for the Tao seed in his body, it would be hard to say what would happen today. Su Fan turned his head and looked at the monster on the ground, and was stunned. He found that the originally hideous monster had turned into a completely rotten human corpse. Su Fan frowned. The strange black smoke attached to the human corpse could actually turn into a ferocious monster. He had never heard of such a thing. At this time, there was a noise in the street. Su Fan moved and floated to the top of the building. He returned to Wangjiang Tower calmly and came to the window on the street. He saw dozens of officers and soldiers with long spears, led by a military general, whistling past downstairs. Su Fan went downstairs and saw Hu Guanghe supporting the constable sitting on the street. Hu Guanghe saw Su Fan, shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Brother, help me carry Lao He to the clinic over there." Su Fan hurried over and helped Hu Guanghe carry the constable to the clinic across the street. The constable was lucky enough to survive. But half of his body was broken. Even if he was cured, he would not be able to stand up again. Because of the appearance of the monster, the city was in chaos, and it was not until the evening that it calmed down. Lao Hu placed Su Fan in an inn and then left. Hu Guanghe came back in the evening with a depressed look on his face and sat there without saying a word. Su Fan poured him a cup of tea and sat opposite him. "Is everything okay in the city?" Lao Hu picked up the teacup and took a sip, then shook his head. "The monster ran out of the charity cemetery. I heard from the people in the charity cemetery that it was transformed from a corpse." After listening to Hu Guanghe's words, Su Fan nodded thoughtfully. "Does anyone recognize that body?" Old Hu smiled bitterly and said, "The body floated over from the Kinkang River yesterday and was picked up by the dock workers and placed in the charity cemetery." At this point, he paused and said, "The body has been found and burned by the government." Su Fan had studied the true explanation of Ghost Dao and had more than a dozen ghosts in his hands. He was quite familiar with ghosts and knew that the strange black smoke could not be a ghost. Not only was the breath wrong, but ghosts attached to people could not be transformed into that kind of monster. The next day, Su Fan and Old Hu came to the dock. Hu Guanghe hugged Su Fan tightly and patted him on the shoulder. "Brother, have a good trip." Su Fan smiled and nodded. Just as he was about to turn around and get on the boat, he saw someone on the dock pointing at the river and shouting loudly. The two turned around and looked at the river and were stunned. They saw several bodies floating on the river in the distance, moving along the water to the dock. The news that the body in the charity cemetery turned into a monster yesterday had spread throughout Luqua County. Seeing another body floating over, the people on the shore immediately panicked, and the dock was in chaos. "Another body is floating over," a boatman standing on the mast shouted loudly. Su Fan and Hu Guanghe jumped on the boat and looked at the river in the distance. They saw many bodies floating on the river. Seeing so many bodies floating over, the dock was completely in chaos. Some boats that had already left the dock quickly turned their bows and docked at the dock again. The people on the boats ran desperately towards the city. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49. Where can you run this time? Su Fan looked at the bodies floating on the river in the distance and couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Yesterday, a monster had turned Lugua County upside down, and today more than 20 bodies floated over. Not to mention the mortals in the city, even he felt a little scalp tingling. At this time, a group of officers and soldiers took several boats, left the dock, and rowed towards the bodies on the river. They used hooks and sickles to fish the bodies on the river to the other side, and then set up firewood to pile the bodies on top and burn them. For a while, the flames shot up to the sky. Looking at the clusters of flames burning on the other side, Su Fan sighed. It's impossible to leave in a short time. After such a big thing happened, which boat owner dared to sail away from the dock? Who knows if there are any more bodies floating on the river? If any body really changes, it will be too late to cry, and it will be swallowed by the monster. There is no way. Su Fan had to stay at Old Hu's house temporarily. Hu Guanghe was very happy and wished that Su Fan would stay for a while. At this time, a group of people came out of the city. The leader was wearing an official robe, and he was followed by an old Taoist priest. Su Fan scanned with his spiritual sense, and found that the old Taoist priest was actually a cultivator, with the first level of key training. Seeing his age, his death should be coming soon. The county's master is here. After hearing what Lao Hu said, he pointed at the old Taoist priest. Where is that Taoist priest? That is the heavenly master of King Song Temple in Heian County. It is said that he knows immortal magic. I heard that the master invited him from the county town overnight. Su Fan nodded and pretended to be puzzled and said, King Song Temple, heavenly master, our key emperor worships Taoism, and every county town has a heavenly master. Su Fan breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he's not from the true demon sect, it's useless to invite him here. With such a low level of cultivation, can he kill demons or exorcise demons? What a heavenly master, he may not even be able to deal with ghosts. If he hadn't killed that monster yesterday, it's hard to say whether Lugua County would still exist, and who knows how many people would die. Su Fan's heart moved, and he remembered the heavenly demon talisman launched by the Ghost King sect last time. That group of black smoke couldn't be the demon soul of the evil demon from outside the domain. Su Fan had seen records about the evil demon from outside the domain in an ancient book. Legend has it that since ancient times, evil demons from outside the domain have often invaded this world of cultivation. The evil demons from outside the domain are very powerful, and they feed on humans and are very cruel. Every invasion will cause the world of cultivation to fall into catastrophe. It is said that the spiritual veins of the western wilderness in ancient times were very rich, and the area was several times larger than it is now. It is because of the invasion of the evil demons from outside the domain that the elite areas of the western wilderness have now become a Jedi. It must be said that the strange black smoke does look a bit like the demon soul of the evil demon from outside the domain. The corpse may have been possessed by the demon soul, and the body has undergone a mutation, which is why it has become such a ghost. But the evil demon from outside the domain has not appeared for thousands of years. At night, Su Fan, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, slowly opened his eyes. In the past 6 months, the progress of cultivation has been extremely slow. According to the Shaoyuan market, it would take less than 3 years for him to reach the 6th level of key training. But in the mortal world, 20 years would be enough. At this time, Lao Hu, who was asking for news in the city, came back. He entered the house and took a sip of tea. I heard from the people in the government office that 2 ships sank at Sishu Ferry a few days ago. The bodies on the river are all people on the ships. After hearing what Lao Hu said, Su Fan frowned. How did the ship sink? And who reported the sinking? Lao Hu shook his head and said, I don't know. People from the county and the county have been sent there today, and the news will be reported back tomorrow. Su Fan thought for a while and said, Is Sishu Ferry far from Lugua County? Not far. If you ride a horse, you can get there in 2 or 3 hours. It's not far at all. By the way, I also heard that in recent months, there have been frequent shipwrecks at Sishu Ferry. When you take a boat to Zhao State, be alert when you arrive at Sishu Ferry. Su Fan nodded and said, When can we sail? I haven't heard of it. Which shipowner dares to leave now? Su Fan couldn't help but sigh after hearing this. He really didn't want to wait any longer. In the mortal world for a few months, his cultivation progress was too slow. The next day, not long after Su Fan got up, Lao Hu came. Brother, something big happened. Su Fan was a little confused after hearing what Hu Guanghe said. What's going on? This is, oh, don't mention it. The boat sent out by the county also sank at Sishu Ferry. Su Fan was stunned when he heard it. There must be something wrong with Sishu Ferry, and it should be related to the extraterritorial demons. Hixun City, the berth of the Bong boat. Gu Kenghuan, wearing a black wazi hat, walked down from the Bong boat. She glanced at the Hixun Mountains in the distance, and then walked towards Hixun City. She stayed in Shaoyuan Market for several months, but did not sense Su Fan's breath. Gu Kenghuan had to admit that the little thief slipped away again. Could this little casual cultivator really be her nemesis? Just when she was about to collapse, the people of the Wang family of the True Demon sect came to Shaoyuan Market to investigate the disappearance of Wang Zhi, a member of the family. After Gu Kenghuan learned the news, she understood it instantly. This little casual cultivator is so brave that he dared to kill people from the True Demon sect. What's more daring is that he actually pretended to be the other party and took a bone boat to Liang's Hao. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. This kid is too cunning. Gu Kenghuan wanted to rush to Liang's Hao immediately and kill the little thief with her own hands. She didn't want to delay any longer, so she boarded the bone boat to Liang's Hao overnight. This time, Gu Kenghuan didn't let her master follow her. She wanted to settle the matter by herself. She entered the city and came to a courtyard in the inner city, according to the address given by her master. She handed over the master's token and met a Jindan elder of the True Demon sect. This Jindan elder is a master of divination and is very famous among the many demon sects in the western wilderness. But the deadline is approaching and there is no hope of breaking through. So he accepts everyone and often tells fortunes for people. He wanted to accumulate more cultivation resources for many younger generations of the family before he died. As long as there are spirit stones, let alone divination, he can do anything. Gu Kenghuan paid a considerable reward, and the elder agreed to help her tell fortunes once without thinking. The elder's level of divination is indeed profound. Her guess was confirmed that the little thief was in Liang's Hao. The other party also sold her a compass magic weapon, and integrated Su Fan's aura into the compass. As long as you hold the compass and follow the direction of the arrow on it, you will not get lost. Gu Kenghuan held the compass, and her heart was very excited. Even though she was worth a lot of money, she felt distressed to pay so many spirit stones. But this spirit stone was worth it. Little thief, let's see where you can run this time. After leaving the courtyard, Gu Kenghuan didn't even eat a bite of food. After leaving the city, she drove the magic weapon and flew in the direction of the compass arrow. Su Fan never dreamed that Gu Kenghuan, the witch, would catch up with him again. Chapter 50 Brother, I was right about you. The next day, Lao Hu went out early to get information as usual. Su Fan took out the ancient book that recorded the outer demons and continued to read it. After all, the outer demons had not appeared for a long time. He had read this book before, just as an online article. Unexpectedly, he really encountered one. Unfortunately, the records about the outer demons in this book were just a few simple descriptions. Su Fan flipped through it for a long time, but didn't get anything, so he could only put the book away. No matter what, the outer demons didn't care about him. He didn't want to get involved in these things. He couldn't wait any longer. If there was no boat leaving today, he would leave Lugua County overnight. Anyway, this place was already on the edge of the True Demon sect's sphere of influence, and it should be no problem to leave at night. At this time, Lao Hu came back from outside. He walked into the house like a lost soul and sat down with a sad face. Yesterday, the county's chief constable led a team, and all the people on the boat were gone. Su Fan didn't respond, but poured a cup of tea and placed it next to Lao Hu. Is there anyone you know in there? Old Hu nodded and said, a brother I grew up with. He has 2 children at home, the youngest of whom is only 5 years old. After he finished speaking, he took out his teacup and took a sip, then wiped his mouth. The county is recruiting young and strong men. I have to go with them. Old Hu, I advise you not to go. It's better not to get involved in this matter. Hu Guanghe smiled bitterly and said, I know, don't advise me. This time, the Taoist priest of King Song Temple will lead the team and go there by land. Su Fan thought for a while and said, Then how about this, I will go with you. Old Hu was stunned for a moment, looked up at Su Fan, and then waved his hand. Brother, what happened in the past 2 days is weird, so don't wade into this muddy water. You are different from me. I have to go, brother, I'd better go. I can help you at any time. Old Hu raised his head, looked at Su Fan for a while, and then patted him on the shoulder. Brother, I didn't misjudge you. He stood up and said, I still have to find a few people. Get ready. We'll leave at noon. After Lao Hu left, Su Fan began to think. This time, he would follow and see. If he encountered danger, he would try his best to protect Lao Hu and escape. Lao Hu has taken good care of him in the past few months. He would help him before he left. Having said that, if he really encountered some foreign evil demon, there would be nothing he could do. Su Fan sat cross-legged on the bed, his eyes fixed, and began to use his spiritual sense to scan the ghost face tattoo on his arm. After scanning it several times in a row, he found nothing unusual. Since leaving Hexuan City, he has been checking the ghost face tattoo every day. This is already thousands of miles away in Liangzhou. For such a trivial matter, the witch would not chase here. Sometimes Su Fan even wondered if he was too cautious. When it was almost noon, Lao Hu took Su Fan to eat in the city. Since the monster appeared in the city, the originally prosperous and lively Luqua County has become deserted. Most of the shops along the street were closed, and there were not many people walking on the street. The whole county was in a state of depression. The two of them had a simple meal, and then went to the county government office together. At this time, the gate of the county government office was already surrounded by people. A dozen constables stood around several carriages, and dozens of young men with bows and swords on their backs led horses, and some young men's family members came to see them off. When everyone saw Lao Hu, they greeted him one after another. A strong man came over and bowed to Lao Hu. Brother, I have got the 2 horses you asked for. I picked them for you personally. Lao Hu nodded and said, where are Dai and the others? They are all tied up by their families. They will be here soon. Haha. Su Fan did not go up to them, but found a place where no one noticed him. Lao Hu was quite prestigious in the county, and several young men followed him, acting like a big brother in the underworld. At this time, several masters in the county came out. They respectfully sent the county city's heavenly master to the carriage, and exchanged pleasantries with the recruited young men. Let's go. With a shout of the leading constable, dozens of young men mounted their horses and followed the convoy out of the city. Su Fan was riding on a horse, feeling uncomfortable all over. He had never ridden a horse in his 2 lifetimes. Fortunately, this horse was relatively docile and did not throw him off. After leaving Luqua County, the team of dozens of people walked slowly along the Qinkang River. Because the carriage was moving slowly, it was estimated that it would take until tomorrow noon to reach Sishu Ferry. This is a bit weird. I heard from the people at the dock that there have been no boats coming from the north for several days. I've been to Sishu Ferry. There were always accidents there before. Is there a demon? It's okay. With a Taoist priest from Kingsong Temple following us, what demon is there to be afraid of? That's right. What's wrong with a demon? There are so many of us. If he dares to come, we'll chop him up. Just brag. Why didn't I see you go up on the day the demon was in the city? I was out of the city that day. If I were there, I would have chopped the demon to death with one knife. Su Fan followed behind Hu Guanghe and listened to the young men around him chatting. Hearing the young man bragging, Su Fan almost laughed out loud. If there really is an evil demon from outside the domain there, none of these people can escape and they will all die. The sun sets in the west, and the sunset is like blood. At the end of the distant horizon, the red sun slowly sinks, and the entire horizon is dyed blood red. The sky gradually darkened, and the team stopped and found a place to camp by the river. Everyone was very tired after walking for a day. After a simple bite of food, they went to sleep. Su Fan sat on the ground next to the campfire. His spiritual sense was completely released, and he could see everything around him for dozens of feet. Even the insects under the ground could not escape his scan. He glanced at the carriage in the distance. The Xianxi who lived in it did not notice his spiritual sense. At this time, Hu Guanghe came over and sat beside him. Brother, you go to sleep. I'll watch you in the first half of the night. Su Fan shook his head and said, Brother, I can't sleep anyway, so let's not stay up together. Old Hu smiled, took out a bottle of wine from his arms, and stuffed it into Su Fan. It was cold at night, and it was cold all over. At midnight, There was silence all around. Su Fan sat cross-legged on the ground, picked up the wine and took a sip. The spicy wine scratched his throat as if it was on fire. It's strong enough. It's much better than the spiritual wine worth 10 spirit stones. Before leaving the mortal world, buy some good wine from the secular world and bring it back. Suddenly, Su Fan turned his head and looked at a forest in the distance. He slapped his storage bag, sacrificed the evil ghost banner, and released Sister Zhen. He activated the invisibility technique and slapped an invisibility talisman on his body. With a move, he disappeared into the dark night. 2 people in black robes were standing in the woods, looking coldly at the camp in the distance. They're all young and strong. It will be enough to take them in, kill the heavenly master in the carriage first, and then deal with these mortals. Bullshit, you are worthy of being called a heavenly master at the first level of key training. Okay, we have to go back before dawn. Let's do it. Just as the 2 were about to walk out of the woods, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. They were almost scared to death. Just when they were about to take out the talisman, they were pinched by the other party's neck and their bodies left the ground. Su Fan looked at them coldly and exerted force with his left hand. Crack, the man on the left was pinched by him and his neck broke. His head tilted and he knew nothing. Senior, spare my life. I posted it a little late today, please forgive me. Thank you Gui Yabe for your monthly ticket, thank you for your continued support. Thank you for the reward from Minnie, thank you for your encouragement, thank you Yi Chenshin, Holiday Coffee, Random Name, Zengayu Tongying, Book Friend 20220106225710373, and all the big guys for their recommendation votes. Lao Bu is deeply grateful, thank you all for your love and support. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.